the revolutionary yourself, Darius Lockhart, and I'm here to tell you to watch Powerbombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's right, every Sunday at 1 p.m., and that's on time, every time, because when we stand together, what time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
Welcome to Powerbombshells 156. I am Mel, that is Sam, and we are just two broads talking about the pro wrestling we like. And I'm wearing this silly hat.
And Nikki was right. She came right on through.
You know what? It is very green. There you go. I was just telling Sam this came with an absurdly appropriating costume back in the day. And I've been saving this one for the right Patty's Day because I had the Hello Kitty one for you last year that I was sitting on for like 5 months. Yeah, I found them after.
Of course.
We do the thing where we go after.
Yeah.
So then I have to sit here and stare at the cool things I'm going to show you like next Easter.
Well, I appreciate the effort and that you do that. It makes me happy.
I amuse myself. It amuses you. And then everyone else seems to love it because it's like part of my deal now. So.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I just went with the Kyle O'Reilly wrestling arts shirt for St. Patrick's Day because I was like, I couldn't remember, and I was like, oh wait, no, it has the little maple leaf, the little Canadian flag, not a shamrock, but Kyle O'Reilly is you can't get a much more Irish name than that, so we'll go with it was close enough. And love Kyle, and he had a great match last night. And
he did have a good match last night.
Nikki said she was not expecting that. Phenomenal.
Yeah, this is one of the really special pieces that I have in my collection that I have to roll out every once in a while, especially because my really Irish friend, like who lives there and is from there, not like I'm Irish American. Really, actually, we get a kick out of sort of doing silly things. Like anytime he comes to the States and we see silly like Shamrock or Harp or anything that's like, associated, we like make him take pictures with the stuff. I mean, there are like endless pictures of him. Like one of us, like he's like his best friend. So he can get him to like basically hold anything and take a picture with the like most dejected faces. So
even better.
It's one of those things where it like makes all the sense in the world to me to roll this one out this year.
And also,
we are in an absurd time, and this absurd hat needed to be rolled out this year.
Exactly. Perfect timing. And also, as our friend Fernando says, also happy 316 day.
Every single day this week, like every day has been really cool. So it was 313 day, which for those of you not from Detroit, look it up. That's 313 Detroit versus everybody. So 313 day is a big deal here.
I'm sure.
So, and I'm sure you can work it out if you're like halfway thinking about it. And then it was Pi Day. Because 314. And now it's like 316. Hey, that's cool. It's a perfect day. I was like, oh, we're a day out from Patty's, but actually that's perfect.
Yes, we're celebrating both today here. And actually it's funny because I tweeted about it being 316 day a little while ago. So, and I posted it on Blue Sky for those of you who follow us there. It's also there. Good afternoon, Maria. Thank you for joining us. We're glad that you're here with us today.
Welcome to everybody. We are very happy to have you here. The day before St. Patrick's Day.
Yes. I was like, do we just get right on into it? Or actually, before we do that, I will say I have not had time to watch anything from New Japan Cup.
Me either.
I do know something about a quarterfinal match that happened or is happening. And I saw 2 of the people who were in it. And that's about it. I just have not had time. And so that's why I was trying to figure out last night. I was like, do I just watch the two final matches or like this? Because yesterday, or I guess technically this morning, that was the show that was Goto versus Nagata, right? Is that the show that was this morning? I think so.
I think you're right.
So
yes, you're right. Because yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And was it just one New Japan quarter match or final match or semifinal match today?
I think there might be 2. but it's not like a huge. I think that is the one that was like the big highlight, like storytelling one, from what I could tell from what.
Okay.
I mean, Jim, so Jim didn't get deep into it because, again, I think all of us were really busy this week. I think it's hard to keep up on tournament stuff sometimes. And I've just been, I'm not going to sit here and lie about it. I've just been watching the tournament matches. I have not been skimming or just skipping the beginning stuff.
Yeah, and I hate it because I love New Japan Cup, but covering WWE takes up a lot of my time and then I just I have free nights, but then I end up doing other stuff. I'm still trying to transcribe an interview that I did 2 Sundays ago. I've gotten a part of it written, but I've got it. I was I don't. And so that's why I was telling Nikki last night. I was like, do we just skip? I mean, because we've missed all the tournament stuff. I was like, do we just watch the finals? And I was like, we still have to watch night 2 of Jersey J Cup because we watched night 1 3 weeks ago. Nikki doesn't know, but I know who won because I saw it the day that it happened. So I know who won it, but I still want to watch. And I was like, I still need to watch ZSJ's GCW matches. I still need to watch his match with Fuego, and I still need to watch his match with Mance. And then I was like, and then we've got WrestleMania, more than WrestleMania weekend coming up.
I know. I was actually oh crap, I'm behind, and we're 2 weeks out or something now.
No, Mania's not till April 20th.
Oh, it's the end of April this year. That's right.
That's why, because Dynasty is in 3 weeks.
I know.
Dynasty's in 3, and then WrestleMania is at the end of I think it's the 20th and the 21st, I think,
or whatever. It's late. It's later. That's right.
It's late this year, and so I was just there's so much happening. So I hate it, but I might just have to watch the finals.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna get to them. I'm just gonna set aside a day. It's just we're between things right now, and so we've been doing a lot of in real life stuff because you have to once in a while. It's spring cleaning time, folks. All right.
Right.
Yeah. Here in Michigan, I love spring in Michigan because it can literally be 80 and snow and hail and rain. And we had like I said, it was gale winds yesterday.
Yeah, we had huge because there was a big line that moved in there was tornadoes.
Yeah, we sent it your way. You're welcome.
Yeah, they were hitting Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia last night. And then we had really heavy rain this morning, and it's supposed to rain around 4:00 this afternoon.
Yeah, so batten down your hatches. It's an ugly one.
We'll see what happens if we're still on air or not. It storms. We'll see.
Fortunately, it wasn't too long, but we did lose power yesterday because of
no. So. Yeah, I was worried. I was like, what if because it was the wind was supposed to be early this morning, around between 6 and 11, and I was like, what if we lose power? And I haven't told Mel that we could be expecting this stuff.
I saw it. I pay attention to my friends where you guys are.
Yeah, I was thinking.
It goes up the spine of the country, but those walls move right across the whole eastern seaboard. And my sister gets our weather. I'm always like, heads up, you got a big storm coming your way in about 2 days.
Yeah.
Because she's in New England, so it's
that's how I am with a lot of the Atlanta weather. I watch because we get it, especially
the Gulf Coast weather. Yeah, because you guys get the Gulf Coast crap too.
Yeah,
you're in such a weird you worry me sometimes because you're in such a weird weather spot that sometimes you're totally isolated, but sometimes you're smack dab in the middle of all the different kinds of weather that happen.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yes,
especially down there because that's hurricane area down there, and you get
Charlotte.
I was there
generally spared, but every once in a while, or even if we don't get the tornado, we still will get the heavy winds and the rains.
Yeah, right.
Still can lose power and things like that type of stuff. So
people don't understand how big tornadoes are, or hurricanes are. I mean,
yes,
because they See, I lived up north. By the time it used to be that they would die because the water was too cold up there, and it was we'd get the wind and the rain and the and stuff like that, but nothing more. Now it's they actually go up the coast, and it's like Hurricane Sandy was a mind blower because hurricanes that size do not hit that far north.
Yeah.
Usually.
Well, I mean, obviously, you look at what happened with Hurricane Helene last year. I mean, it hit the mountains, and that doesn't happen.
Never happen.
And where they were in Asheville, it's at the base of the mountain, and so there's flooding was insane on top of the tornado. There was just it doesn't happen. And so nobody was prepared for it
Right.
because that's not a thing that happens. And now it is because, climate change and things, but
Climate crisis. We're there.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
bad. It's really so. Let's not talk about boring stuff.
No, we're going to, Maria also says that you have another fabulous hat today.
Thank you. Thank you. I try, you guys. I really do. I mean,
she does. And I appreciate the effort that you put into your hats. It's always, I always look forward to it.
I check the clearance racks and everything else all the time. I mean, I don't have an unlimited hat budget, but I do my absolute best. So
listen, getting anything on clearance is always good.
I love it. It's my favorite thing. It's worth the waiting just because some of the stuff I grab is so cute.
Yes. Maria said unfortunately she lives in Orlando, Florida, so she goes to stores all the time. Maria, I know that you do.
I have the empathy in the world.
It's a lot.
I have friends down there. I have friends in the St. Pete area that always get it, and I have to be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Like all the time. So it's fun though. I love that Facebook does that mark safe thing because you can actually customize it now, which I think is hilarious because it's like we can mark ourselves safe from whatever wrestling the tragedy happened on social media or whatever. I just love that.
Need to mark myself safe from some of that stuff.
It's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those things that you can do just I have Hob the Troll randomly will mark himself safe from random places and it's hilarious. I always get it. I'm like, you are doing social media correctly. That's good. I want to laugh. I want to smile. I want to go, oh, look at the puppy or the kitty. Like that's it. That's what I want for my social media.
I shared puppy pictures this weekend. Miley, Friday was her 6-year gotcha day. And so unfortunately she wasn't feeling too well. Her tummy seemed to be bothering her a little bit. So we were going to go take her we have a local little shop where we get her flea medicine and stuff, but they also sell cookies and they have a little gotcha day cookie. But since she wasn't feeling well, we decided we'll try to take her sometime this week. We'll just go in the middle of the week or something and take her over there. And I mean, she doesn't have to be with us, but she, for the most part, enjoys car rides. So we'll probably take her over and let her look around. Last time, I think it was the last time, that's when she met a guinea pig, or maybe it was the time before that. She met a guinea pig for the first time because they have guinea pigs in the store. They're not for sale or anything, but the store owns them. And she saw them and she was like, what is this furry thing? And I was like, Miley, I know that you are part beagle, but please do not. And she scared it because she was on top of it and she made it jump. And I was like, all right, Miley, come on. Let's get your treats and go. Please don't give the store guinea pigs heart attacks before you leave.
Leave the small creatures alone. They don't understand your largeness.
Exactly.
I know it's in your breed to want to eat them. Mm-hmm. Please don't.
No, she saw the other night I took her out. This was 3 or 4 nights ago. I took her out before bed and we both saw it at the same time on the fence, the back of the yard. There was a possum. You could see it in the moonlight. It was this big, fur going everywhere. And we saw it at the same time. And she I had her on even though we're in a fenced in yard, I have to keep her on a leash for these purposes because if she picks up a scent, she will bark and wake up the neighbors and their dogs. So she has to go out on a leash at night. And she saw it and she pulled and I'm surprised I don't have leash burn because she pulled so hard and she was losing it. And I was like, it's not even, and it was going to the neighbor's yard. And I was like, Miley, just please go to the bathroom and don't wake up the other dogs. It's because then the owners are going to be mad at me when their dogs wake up barking. And she was like, it took a while to coax her in because she locked in where I couldn't even pull her with the leash where she put all her weight down.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Please stop. And so now she's smelled it for the last 2 nights. And especially the wind, because of the storm coming through, the wind was blowing a lot last night. And I don't think she could see it, but she could smell something. And I was like, please just go to the bathroom and let's go to bed, please.
Just let it go.
Yeah, she's like, please just let. And I was like, it's not even, you probably can't even see it. I think you just smell it. I was like, and then the cat heard her barking and he ran to see what was happening and decided there's nothing in the garden but dirt. And he jumped in the garden and was playing in it. I was like, It is like 2:30 in the morning. Come on. I was like, it is bedtime. I was like, so Nikki had to go wrangle the cat while I was trying to wrangle the dog. So that's fun time.
Excellent. That, you know what? That is the true life of a pet parent right there, folks.
Yes.
I have so much empathy for your situation. Mine,
Yes.
what you're talking about with the anchor, or where they put all their weight in their back end. So
Mhm.
one of ours is a blue heeler and the other one is part blue heeler. She's half. And they have, if you look at the puppies, they actually have their back ends are heavy. We
Right.
call it a potato stack because that's what it's like. And
Right.
they sit on them. If you look at like
Mhm.
pictures, they're super cute, but they
Mhm.
sit on their potato sacks. But also they can make them weigh about 30 times their like
Yes.
body weight. And so it's like, if you cannot move either of them, because she is a half terrier, but because she got like all of the high powered healer parts, we actually call her an OP terrier. She can make her potato sack super heavy. You cannot like pick her up. It's
I
like
believe
you're
it.
dragging her by her chest with your arms like around her, trying to move her. It's like she's only 32 pounds, but somehow she manages to make herself.
Oh, I
like
believe it. Because
82
when
pounds.
they get laser focused and they're locked in, like it's like you
Oh,
can't
they
even
remember where they left stuff in the yard. Mine are too
Yeah.
smart for me.
They will. They're so Miley's the same way. When she gets focused on something, like she gets tunnel vision and nothing else matters, and it's hard to even like. Sometimes I have to get in front of her face and drop down and be like, "Hey, pay attention to me." And she's like, "No, but there's something over there that I want."
We taught them look. It's actually something that I'll give you a great that you would love Decoding Your Dog. It's an amazing book and you would totally love it because it's all positivity and stuff, and it teaches like, but we taught them to look, and they actually know hand gestures because they're working breeds, so they need jobs.
Right. Yeah.
But they remember where they put stuff. Like they leave it outside and go right back to it. I mean, it's impossible. Like you have got to. It's intense work. I know Bluey is cute. I know she's adorable.
She is.
Blue heelers are they are incredibly high maintenance dog. They're not great they're not bad with kids, but they need to be around them their whole life, and they need to be properly trained, and the kids need to be properly trained. So please, because I know people ran out and bought Dalmatians and stuff like that. I'm telling you right now, yes, they are adorable as puppies. They need jobs. They are very high maintenance. If you're picking a healer, you're committing because they are smarter than you. Like I've learned things about dogs I never thought I would learn because of this dog. He is like, whoa. He learned to open, and I read about this. We have to put a baby gate in front of if we want to open the slider and not have the air conditioning on when it's like this time of year and it's nice.
Right.
We have to put a baby gate in front of the screen door because he figured out immediately that if he jumped up with his nose and pushed it down, he could let himself out. Yeah. Like we have a rule. We will never let him see us climbing because our neighbors we're fine. If we like get something in the under neighbor, we'll never let him see us climbing their fence because we don't want to give them any ideas.
Right. I don't blame you.
And they can jump that high. If you like when you read about them, they get super jumpers. Like and they're known for being escape artists apparently. So
I'm not surprised.
Oh crap. And I can't have him letting himself in and out all day long. It would be
a nightmare.
Yeah.
I would cry if because Miley's bad. She digs on the door really bad, and because of the other dogs that we had, so she pops the door. If it's not locked, she pops it open, or she digs on it and it rattles the entire door. It's a nightmare. So
but they're just dumb dogs, right?
Either. Yeah.
That's what's I mean, there's a whole bunch of people out there that will be like, they're just dumb. It's like,
no.
Can you tell them that? So that's been Pet Minute with
this is Big Dog Corner of Power Bombshells. Now we will get into the wrestling. Since we were here last week, we obviously did the pre-show for Revolution, and we are a week out from that. And so before we get into the aftermath of Revolution, I guess we'll give do you have any thoughts you would like to share on the Revolution pay-per-view itself, or even the 0 hour or anything related to it?
My super overall take on Revolution was it was a great show. It completely delivered. Sometimes I struggle to get to the main events. I was awake the whole time. There was no like struggle at the end, especially, and that's especially since this one went extra late.
Yeah,
it went a little later than even he goes, which is madness. But I think Dave clocked it at 5 hours and 10 minutes. I read the Observer this week because there was a lot of good stuff about, there's a great article that he shared that he was allowed to share about Mildred Burke inside of the Observer this week.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool.
It's very good. I read a lot of the like history stuff, but skimmed the other. And of course, we'll get to some of the other stuff just because it is part of the discussion. But it was so good. It's already, I'm literally right now at this moment as good as Wrestle Kingdom was this year. This is my pay-per-view of the year right now.
I would say it was an all-timer until we got to the main event. If the main event was left off that show, it would have been a perfect show for me.
Yeah.
I hated the main event. Hated everything about it. It was crap. I had no interest in it. And even though, as we said before, I'm a huge Mox fan, I had no interest in the main event. The wrestling was not that great. And then the bullshit with Christian. I get that it gets the contract because we've talked about this. They booked themselves into a corner with that contract that Christian had. And Brad pointed out, like, hey, he never signed it. Maybe we can get away from it. And what does Christian do? He comes out and sign it. I was like, there goes that. So I was like, at least they got that contract away from him because that was a hindrance. Because
they needed that out of there.
They needed that out of the way. Obviously, it reignites his feud with Cope, but this was not the way to do it.
No, it fell flat.
Again, this did not need to be the main event. Because the wrestling was not great. The story was crap. But the way Tony and Mariah ended with literal words, the end on the screen, like that's the close of your pay-per-view. And I get it. You got your moment with Swerve, which good for him. Thankfully, they at least had that at the very end of the pay-per-view to send the fans home happy as, we got Swerve and we got him. The fans were behind him. So I will give them that at least. And so there at least is that. But the match itself, I hated everything about it. I don't know how they're going to unless I don't think Swerve was I don't think the end goal was always Swerve beating Moxley. So I don't know if this is an out or if Mox is going to retain. But at this point, I don't know how you wait for Eddie to come back because he's not supposed that he's. The timetable is August. Who knows what will happen if he comes back sooner? Darby has not climbed Mount Everest yet. If either of those were your people, I don't know how we get from March to August, March to the summertime with this story because the fans are tired of it. Obviously, it's just not working. So I don't know if TK will pivot, and if he will realize, but we've talked about how hard it is for him to pivot on things. He saw that stupid devil storyline all the way through, even though it was awful. And I don't know. For me personally, I don't think the Death Rider story is as bad as the devil storyline, but there are parts of it that I don't like. And I don't like this match. I don't like how they did this match. I figured I'm not surprised we're getting a rematch. I figured because of the way it ended, I was like, well, Cope's going to want a rematch because he got screwed. And so we're getting the street fight this week.
Which feels like kind of a course correct. It's almost them admitting that they're fucking match. So
right. And so I did watch the scrum because I wanted to know if anybody was going to ask. Very last question, a guy from iHeart asked, hindsight being 2020, do you think the women should have main evented? And he wouldn't outright say it, but he did say the women's match was really good. He really put it over. He said any of the last 4 matches could have been the main event. They all delivered. He wouldn't, of course, he's not going to talk badly about Mox and Cope, especially because Cope is one of his his favorites. Mox has been somebody he's relied on so many times, and so he's not going to say it, but I think, like, maybe I wonder, like, because he's in the moment, you're finding out, people are injured. We found out later Swerve has a busted eardrum. So I'm sure he's kind of in the moment, but I wonder, like, after everything was said and done and he thinks about it, like, I wonder if his opinion changed, or once he saw the feedback that he got from the pay-per-view, like, if that changed anything that he thinks about how that played out. But
well, as someone who actually read the Observer this week, even Dave argued this probably I reread this sentence in the paragraph a few times. I was like, he literally is arguing that the women should have made right here, Dave. And I mean, I didn't listen to any of the stuff about the Megan Bain stuff that they were talking about. I have things to say about all of that, but whatever, we can talk about it or not. But I read the Observer. It's right there. He also said that she was a step down in the Observer, which is stupid, but that's a different subject entirely. But he put it right in there. Even Dave, who for all intents and purposes is not a fan of modern women's wrestling. He's not following modern women's wrestling in any way, shape, or form. He's not watching New Japan, or he's not watching TJPW. He's not watching Stardom.
Right.
Those days are over for him. Like, that, in my opinion, that's what I see when I read and listen. And I haven't listened much. I've actually done myself a favor and stopped listening to wrestling podcasts, and it's made my experience better again. So then I say that as my wrestling podcast.
No, I get it. Well, there's a lot of negativity out there.
On everybody else, I love everybody's stuff, but it gets in your head sometimes.
Well, and depending on the podcast that you're listening to, which are none of the ones I listen to, it's usually angry men yelling. It's a lot of shills for certain companies, and so everything else they just find everything to hate on a particular company. And I mean that's, and I get it, that's clickbait for some people. That brings in views, it brings in money, and that's what they're gonna do because they're grifters, and I get it. But and we appreciate you here who are listening to us, because we try not to do that here. We don't, we're definitely not shills, even though people are convinced because I'm on media calls, they think I'm a shill for AEW. It's the wrestling. That New Japan are the wrestling I prefer. A lot of indie wrestling is what I prefer. WWE is something I grew up watching. It's not the style I appreciate anymore. I will say that they have gotten better in the last few years, but that is because they were forced to.
Yep.
And that's why they're in the position they're in now, is because they were forced to make their product better, or they would get overtaken. And we said that from the beginning. Competition, that's what it does. It's supposed to push you to get better. And now that they're hot, it's got to push other companies.
They're as hot as they've been in years.
Yeah,
this is like the hottest they've been in years.
Has to push AEW to get better.
Right.
And so that's why, and then, so, they're going to get criticized when there's storylines like this. And when there is an 18-month storyline that is arguably the best story that you're telling, should have gotten that main event spot.
Well, the fans are enjoying it. Like, it doesn't always get the numbers in any whatever, but there is response. People listen to how over people were for them. And even last night for Tony, they were like, that place went insane for her.
Right.
She just keeps like doing it's kind of funny because it's like this multiple Tonys where she was like pretending to be all the different Tonys, but now she really is kind of like, her kayfabe has become shoot. It's crazy. She's so great. I love it. I love what she's doing. I think the Megan Bain thing is great.
I do too.
The idea of Megan Bain being a step down shows me that you are not paying attention to women's wrestling in any way, shape, or form, because Megan Bain,
she has, and we'll get more into a little bit, with the aftermath of that, but I'll just save it for when we get to the aftermath part.
My bad.
We'll revisit this. But so I mean, overall, I thought Revolution was excellent. It was an all-timer. I loved the cage match, and if the women's match was not going to close, I would have closed with the cage match, because Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay were incredible. I love that match. Takeshita and Kenny Omega delivered. That was fantastic. Even though we all pretty much knew that Kenny was winning, they still went out there and delivered.
matter.
You know, MJF and Hangman was great. Like it was just, God, Momo and Mercedes was incredible. Mercedes is finally hitting her stride in, we saw it with the matches with Chris, but since she's gotten those matches with Chris in AEW, because clearly we've seen outside of AEW, she's been having these incredible matches. She was doing it in New Japan and Stardom. And then last night, I haven't seen it, but I heard, because she wrestled at House of Glory and she wrestled Indy Hartwell, who she's been training with. She's been since Indy was released from WWE, they've been training together, just like she's been training with Harley. And I saw a couple of people say that was Indy's best match she's ever had.
Nice.
Which was really cool to hear. So I'm glad to hear that Mercedes which is what we said before. Mercedes is here to bring the division up with her. She's not here to squash it down. She's here to, just like Athena in ROH, she's there to bring up the women with her. She's not there to push the women down and to keep them down. She's there to elevate them, which I think is what Mercedes is doing. And she's doing it in other companies outside of AEW. She's doing it wherever she goes. She's elevating women's wrestling and getting eyeballs on it because she is a known name. Whether that's people wanting to see her fail or not, she's still getting eyeballs on these products.
But that's how that's sort of sadly the part of the cultural river norm. That's how people act right now. It's like, I think rooting for someone to fail is the dumbest enterprise.
It is awful.
Like that's like, what's wrong with
Get a hobby. It says more about you than whatever you're trying to make fail.
Get a hobby. You need to go do something, like try something, drawing or watching. You need to turn the Bob Ross channel on and just chill.
Please do. We love the Bob Ross channel in the fact.
That'll get you started. That's a great place to start. Bob has a way of he just gets you in the right state of mind, man. Our dogs are starting to like what we've like. It's become because of what like our life is a little stressful right now. Has been our backup background noise.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. That channel is my favorite thing. I'm so happy it exists. But now we leave it on for the dogs because even they're like, yeah, he's so relaxing.
Yeah.
His voice is so relaxing. And he plays with squirrels. And we like to play with squirrels.
Right. Exactly. So LaRon says the House of Glory match was really good. It went almost 15 minutes and was easily Indy's best match. Good for her. I'm glad to hear that, especially as she's being a free agent right now. I'm glad, and to see her outside of the box that she's been in for a while. I'm going to get to some of these comments over here before we move on to some of the fallout. Jermaine says, "Hey, at least TK came close to give us a women's match. Mercedes versus Momo opening the show. Well, they were the second match on the main card, but it was close. Yeah, because we had the conversation. What if they open with the women? And I was like, no, they'll open with MJF because they always do. And then we got the MJF match, and then it went right into Mercedes. And I was like, see, it could have gone either way.
Yep.
But yeah, Mercedes and Momo, they definitely delivered.
We almost had the card right.
You saw that bruise on Mercedes' face on Dynamite.
She took a throat injury, actually.
Yeah, she said that her throat got hit. So yeah,
that's what the observer report that she took a throat. She has a bruised larynx, essentially.
Oh, I believe it because she said she said she had a throat injury on.
Yeah,
on
and
Wednesday.
as somebody, you're someone who obviously understands like the dynamics of throat and that stuff. So that can be pretty painful because that whole section is like that's nerves and bone basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But she's like.
But then she turned around and she wrestled last night for nearly 15 minutes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Those are battle scars. That's how to earn your way to the top. Like, that's how you earn your way to the top of the card. This is why the argument is being made that maybe this needs to be something that happens. Because that was there were 4 5-star matches on this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
again, that pay-per-view was an all-timer despite the shit that happened in the main event.
Yeah, that match really, you know what this reminds me of?
That was a Dynamite match.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the Onita match, the death match.
But see, that match itself was good. It was the aftermath of the fireworks not exploding, like the pyro not going off.
That show was really good. There were some great matches on that show. but everybody remembers the effing finish.
Yes, which is crazy because they forget that the match itself was
awesome.
Great. It was the payoff from the pyro that sucked, but the entire thing, the match, the cash in with Christian, all of that. Even though we'll get to the aftermath part with what happened with Christian afterwards. But yeah, despite that, I think this show was an all-timer, and Revolution has definitely been earning a reputation as one of because as we've said, this is typically, before there was no Wrestle Dynasty, and that's a group, but this is their kickoff of the year. This is their big pay-per-view that they do that sets the tone for what's coming for the rest of the year, which is very exciting with what we saw, but then also you have that match on there. And where is this Death Rider story going? Because it seems to it seems that only Mox knows where the story is going. And sometimes I don't even know that he knows where this is going.
Out because everything else was planned out.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Outrunners Hurt Syndicate thing, which a lot of people thought was a little hot-shotted.
Yeah.
It wasn't, but it had a story.
Yeah.
And that one I feel bad a little bit because I think that it may have buried the Outrunners a little bit because of being.
Unfortunately, I only saw parts of that match because we were
not because they were bad, but I feel like if you were trying to get them hot, losing to a hotter tag team because the Hurt Syndicate is really big
I guess
right
that's
now.
why. Because I feel like I get it because the Outrunners are just they're super over, but so are the Hurt. People think we hurt people.
We hurt people.
They are not. They are heels, but also not. But it's like Swerve. When Swerve was a heel, people were still chanting "Whose house? Swerve's house," even though he was a heel. And so the Hurt Syndicate is in that same vein where yes, they're technically heels, but also the fans love them, are going to sing their theme music to them.
Yeah, it was tricky. It was perspective a little bit was like, oh, that's true. It was to their detriment. I wish it had been just because I know that it's going to like hurt them for future because of what went on there. And we all knew they weren't going to win. I think that it was pretty obvious, like to everyone, that they weren't. I kind of wish it maybe had been a different tag team.
What they should have done when the Outrunners won is had that match on Dynamite, and then have the Hurt Syndicate turn around and face Monster Machine at the pay-per-view. Is what they should have done. I think that because initially they wouldn't say where the match was happening, and I was like, well, why not just do the Outrunners match on TV, and then pivot back, have Monster Machine do the same thing to them, cost them the match, and then earn their spot at the pay-per-view and have that be the pay-per-view match. That's what I would have done, but
I like that.
It's unfortunate. They did have the Outrunners come out last night and save Will Hobbs. So I don't think they've completely mangled it. I think they can recover.
No,
from
I
it.
think they can, and I think the Outrunners are great. They're not like ready to be champions yet or anything like that.
No, it's not like when Swerve and Keith Lee beat the Acclaimed when the Acclaimed should have won, and so then 2 weeks later they had to redo it and have a rematch and have the Acclaimed win it. Like it wasn't that.
No,
but I don't think that the Outrunners, I don't think it's going to hurt them. I'm sure it's going to hurt a little bit, but I don't think it's buried them in any sense because they're still super.
No, I don't think they're buried.
And they're huge merch sellers. They're not. They're just going to have to kind of fix it a little bit, but I think that they can do that.
But they are awesome, so they'll probably keep doing what they're doing, and that's great by me. I felt like it was awesome. Yes.
Yeah. What's criminal? Yes, and then that was a dumb. Again, I know it gets the contract away from Christian because they booked themselves into a corner. I just didn't like the way. To me, because it was never signed, they could have done something else. They could have made it a match. He could have given the spot to Nick Wayne or something like that.
Jay White could have stolen it. There was the whole
they could have
Jay
done
White
something.
stealing it.
They could have done something else other than that, but it quickly gets him out of the title picture, and so I guess that there's that. Fernando says Tony needs to learn how to read the room. Everyone wanted timeless and versus May, and hardly anyone cared about Moxley and Cope. Yeah, and I saw people who don't really talk a lot about things that are booked, and they're like, I'm not trying to. And somebody was like, I'm not even trying to be controversial. I just don't understand why the women are not main eventing this when it seems like that's what everybody wants. And also, it's the story you've been telling the longest.
You're literally calling it the title of it has ending in it.
Right.
It should have been like, how cool would it have been to go out on that note with the and the end and everything fades out and everybody goes home happy.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it seems very simple to me, but what do I know?
I guess
just a woman who likes women's wrestling.
It's the traditional, like the belt has to be at the top of the card and the whole thing.
They have the belt and Moxley's belt.
I know.
As Tony rightfully called him out. Tony Storm called his ass out and said the other title is in a briefcase. Good for her.
I know. She's great.
Though she has a world champion, her world championship is just as important as his is. So
I like how she's putting over the women's division, because she, like, last night, her whole promo was like, if you want to be me, you have to come fight me. And it's like,
yes, and she basically said that on Wednesday, which Megan answered, and we'll get to all of that, but Megan said, okay.
I mean, that's the belt that people want to see right now.
Yes.
That's the championship belt people want to see right now. Because they're not, I mean,
between that and Mercedes' 4 belts, that's what.
There's a lot going on in the women's division right now. Like, there just is. There's a lot of people stepping up. They're taking their time. They're taking their shots. It's a really strong division. Like, we know the men's division is strong. It seems silly to keep the belts off of Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega when they're destroying everything right now.
Right.
I mean, everything from ratings to just in-ring that's what people want. I mean, they needed to put a belt on Kenny to get everyone to shut up about putting the belt on Kenny, because that's not happening right now. We all know
Kenny's not going to be anywhere near that title for probably until sometime next year.
I like this.
At the earliest, if Ospreay isn't in that picture beforehand, but we'll get to all that. Maria says she's a Tony and an AEW apologist, but I can't defend him here. It was a really bad look for him to not make Storm versus May in National Women's Month. Yeah, the same weekend release and the same weekend of Queen. Yeah, like we talked about, like there's all these things that would have made it even more perfect, because you had the women's, you had the Queen of the Ring tie-in, you had them there, you had like Jay Farrow from SNL was in the second row, and he was talking about, he's like, because it was he's like, this was because I follow him on Instagram.
You were in Hollywood for F's sake.
Yeah, and he was like, this was my first AEW match, and oh my god, the women. He was like, I don't know if that was real glass or sugar glass or what that was, but he was like, I can't believe the women did that. And he was like, that was crazy. And so that you have like, and then obviously you have like Leslie Jones, who was there, Leslie is amazing. I love her so much. And she's like super into the Swerve and Nana stuff. Like they could have done so much more with it. And
especially the women, you're in Southern California, for Pete's sake. That's the exact place you kind of should do that.
Yeah. And then Lauren says, he's not a TK apologist. He totally dropped the ball by not having the women main event. If the world title is the most important, there's no reason not to put the women on last. 100%. And then he said, it's not like the men are lacking in the pay-per-view main events department. They've had 23 main event pay-per-view events out of 34 pay-per-views. And this is the one that the women, and that's the thing, the women would not be given the main event. They fucking earned that spot. That is the match that people are still talking about.
Well, it's weird.
A week later, that
heated up.
Yeah.
And then they didn't like swing.
No, not at all. Which, I mean, TK does sometimes. We've seen him do it with wrestlers. He gets them right to the brink. Wardlow is 101 of this. He's gotten Wardlow to the brink, pulled him right back, had to rebuild him, and then he dropped the ball again, and then Wardlow's been injured. There's the whole MJF bullshit that hurt him. And like, he's definitely one of those guys. And obviously wrestling companies are going to make mistakes. They're
of course
humans just like but that's just one of an example that I go back to all the time, is look at what they did to Wardlow. Wardlow was super hot, and they tore him apart, rebuilt him, got him hot again, and then did nothing with him. And then
he got hurt.
He's never, I mean, obviously he's dealing with injury stuff. And I believe they said, it was funny because somebody asked us last week about Wardlow, and the Select came out later that afternoon that he's been in LA working on a project. So he was in town last weekend. And so Wardlow, listen, at this rate, that might be his path is wrestling. I mean, is Hollywood, because they have fumbled him so badly that if he is cleared to wrestle again, I don't know what they're going to do with him because they have they've ruined him, which is no fault of his own. And yes, Maria, I 100% agree with you. There is a hate for Mercedes that feels like it has nothing to do with wrestling. No, you're right. You're 1,000% right. We've had that conversation many, many times, and unfortunately, you were right. Yeah, it has been a phenomenal few days of women's wrestling. Revolution is the AEW's second best pay-per-view after All In. Yes, I would agree. Indie,
Cinderella tournament, all kinds of ladies.
Yeah,
going on right now.
Because I know Willow just wrestled in TJPW over the weekend, or yesterday, I think was her show, or maybe technically this morning, I guess.
Tournament season jokes.
And she posted a picture with Aja Kong and Miko Satomura today.
Nice.
It was her. She said it was her first time getting to meet Miko. She finally got to meet her today, which is incredible. Jermaine says Indy was so good last night. Makes me wonder why WWE let her go in the first place. But I do hope that she gets picked up at AEW and continue working with Mercedes. I saw someone say that the way their match ended could set up for Indy doing if Mercedes does like an open challenge or something like that, it could leave the door open for that. So that sounds like, and it sounds like that was probably on purpose because Mercedes again wants to elevate other women, and it seems like that's what she's doing.
Did you know that? Oh, read that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Make Beat says, I will be forever mad that the Hollywood ending did not end Revolution. Tony and Mariah deserved it. They deserve 3 main events with this story they put with all the work they put in. And that match was so good. Yeah, agreed. I 100% agree with you.
It would have been nice to end with a direction instead of directionless. So,
yeah.
I mean, no matter how you booked the pay-per-view, if you were going to have that directionless situation with the belt and Moxley and Cope and Christian and the whole thing, I don't know. That was not good positioning for it.
No.
And
especially because when you
fell flat after all the other stuff that was on the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. If they had not had even I think even if you didn't have the steel cage match, even having what Mariah and Tony did and still having that, like even if it was Mariah, Tony, Takeshita and Kenny, and then the main event, it still would have looked bad even without. But having that cage match in there also, just like and then you had a wrestling match with Takeshita and Kenny Omega on top of that. They delivered in what everybody wanted who likes that type of wrestling. They delivered, and then Mox and them had to also. So they had to follow. I mean, they put them in a bad position. Like you said, and it was not a main event match. That's a Dynamite main event match, maybe. Not a pay-per-view.
The shenanigans were not.
Yes,
it just you're treading into territory I don't like.
Yeah, Jermaine says the Hurt Syndicate is starting to come off like the old school WWE APA. I can see that.
That's actually, I get that. I see the comparison.
I Make Beat says there are still idiot fans and bookers who are ignorant, don't care about women's wrestling. It's ridiculous, and we need more respect on women's gold. 100%.
I mean, the best thing we can do is watch TJPW and Stardom and all those other promotions and try and get people.
Well, it sucks because it's the wrestling I watch is AEW, so I want them to put on women's wrestling. Clearly I'm struggling to find the time even to watch New Japan, which I love. I have no time to watch the Cup. Unfortunately, I don't have time to watch Stardom and TJPW to support these women. So in the wrestling I do have the time to watch, I want the women's wrestling to be respected and presented well.
If you're going to have a division, you need to have the division, I guess. Like you have to build it. If you're going to keep it as a part of your situation, then you at least have to support it and give it you want to set it up for success.
Yeah,
just like you would anything in your business. Is
agreed.
Like setting anything up for any talent up for failure, no matter what gender or background, is counter to your entire bottom line.
Yeah,
I mean, I think Tony is too much of a fan sometimes. Still, I just
apparently not a fan of women's wrestling though.
Well, That tracks.
If he was more of a fan of women's wrestling, we probably wouldn't be having the conversations we have. And that's not to say that he hates women's wrestling or anything like that, but it is not a priority for him, and that's clear that it's not. And it's which is crazy considering two of the stories that he's been heavily involved in have been Athena and Billy and Tony and Mariah. And Tony and Billy have gotten to main event. Or not Tony, I'm sorry. Athena and Billy have gotten to main event. And Athena has main evented 3 times in ROH.
Wow.
It's been 0, obviously, in AEW. And Vinkin says, which is the only logical way this is going to go with Megan destroying Tony, which, yes, we'll get to, yes. And Steve said Stardom had a great white belt match this weekend. Good for them. I'm glad to hear that.
I know that's a big tournament. I'm gonna check some out. I've got some. I get playlists from Barbaro and my good brother there, and I get to bounce around a little bit. I need to set aside a day and watch. I have a wrestling day this week.
Yeah,
just watching wrestling, bouncing around, watching my matches.
That's a good plan. And then I make beat says Take is moving up. I hope. I still stand by my theory that Take is going to New Japan and will be spending a lot of time there because he has multiple contracts. He and Kyle Fletcher are on this very parallel path. And unfortunately, the way the booking is, there's not room for both of them in the way that it's being handled. And I think eventually we'll get probably Kyle Fletcher versus Takeshita will probably be what happens. But I think that Takeshita is going to New Japan. I think he's going to be in G1. I think he's going to do his DDT Pro dates that he has. I feel like that's where they're going with him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's off some AEW-ness for a bit, just off doing Japanese
because
stuff.
we saw him come out and he answered Max Caster's challenge and got out his aggression and just squashed him and just like, I'm really fucking pissed I lost my title. Here's Max Caster. I'm going to beat his ass for it.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into some of the, like you said, the DDT stuff, and the G1 is in July is when it starts, so we'll see. But
yeah,
I don't know how much
my
we're
theory. I could
him.
be completely wrong. Maybe Tony has other plans for him, but I just feel like because he has the 3 contracts, I could see that. Fernando, it looks that way.
Does it?
Is Jeff Cobb going to WWE? He was listed internally on the reports this week, apparently.
Really?
Yeah. It appears that way, that he is.
Oh, that makes me sad.
It does make me sad, but on the other hand,
it makes me happy for him if he's happy.
For me as a wrestling fan, it makes me sad because I feel like WWE will misuse him. However, the age that he is, this is probably the last time he's going to get a big his last opportunity to get a huge paycheck, and Jeff Cobb deserves a huge paycheck.
True.
And if WWE is the one who will give it to him, then I cannot begrudge him for that. And because I have to watch WWE, I at least will get to see him. My editor at Daily DDT was like, I want to see Jeff Cobb, on my TV every week, and I just want to see him throwing dudes at people.
Yeah,
and I was like, I get it.
And doing moonsaults.
Yeah, and so it appears that is true. That yes, he's finishing up with New Japan. Like basically, as soon as the tournament's over, it sounds like he is WWE bound. He was reportedly on, from what the reports are saying, he was internally listed, and they have internally listed Rey Fenix. Friday SmackDown, they showed the first teaser for him. They showed a teaser for what appears to be, which is most likely going to be Aleister Black, as the other teaser that they showed. And so we'll see, but that's what it feels like. I would like to, maybe the information is wrong, but from the information that's out so far, it appears that's the case. But I thought he was, because I was like, oh, because I mentioned something about him, he's in his late 30s, and Josiah was like, no, he's 42. And I was like, well, then even more for him. That's going to be his. I know in Japan that they can wrestle. A lot of them wrestle into their 50s, and who knows? Maybe he'll go back to Japan once he does this run. But also, like, and apparent the rumor is AEW does not have interest in him. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know how you cannot be interested in
I
Jeff
mean, he was
Cobb.
fundamentally on there because he got a graphic at some point or another.
I think he was just...
Or I don't know if he did or not. I know he was like, I think it ended up that he was like just contracted with them to do some of the stuff and he could go back and forth. And
yeah,
it's just for my heart, my Japanese pro wrestling
I get it. Yeah.
Heart, what it's going to make me sad. He's wonderful on the microphone. He's wonderful in the ring. He's just wonderful. But in terms of like, good for Jeff.
Yep. Like from like that's like from a wrestling fan standpoint, no, I wish he was not going. But from as a person who enjoys Jeff Cobb, I want him to be happy. I want him to make money. If this is his last opportunity to make that money, if it gives him time so he doesn't have to keep traveling back and forth between the States and Japan, and he can be home for a little bit more often. If that, I don't know what his motivations are, but I assume, I assume that part of it is, this might be my last shot at making big money and getting a nice guaranteed contract for, 3 years or whatever the terms are. So we shall see. Maybe next week it'll be a little bit more clear once the cup is over and we have some more information on that. Hey, Brad, thanks for joining us. Brad has just got home taking Kathy to a history of the Barbie exhibit at
nice.
And that sounds awesome.
I would go to that.
But Kathy had a great time. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's crazy. The history is really crazy.
Oh, I'm sure. I know like a little bit about it.
That's what I was going to tell you. Do you know the reason that we know Mildred Burke's story is because JR bought the rights to her story back in the day?
I think I heard something about that, and that JR
was in the Observer. I was like, okay, I will give him total props. It turns out that he bought the article that the book took the idea from. He bought the rights to the book, and he bought the rights to her story back in like.
And he's the one who shopped it around to make it into a film,
was waiting for the appetite for that story to happen because he was like, someday we saw where wrestling was going. He's like, someday someone is going to be able to tell this story right. And so he's been sitting on it for years until this happened. I was like,
that's awesome.
You know what?
Well,
all the things it's like, this is the thing that people forget about JR in terms of his legacy is that he's done stuff like that. There's so many people in wrestling right now that JR was very much a part of being involved in. It's I get the loyalty to the McMahons. I understand where that neuroses comes from. I get it. But beyond that, like the amount of things that he's done for pro wrestling, including this, and her story is remarkable. It is crazy. Like I'm excited to see the flick just from reading this article now.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I
was so super grateful to JR for not just buying the rights, but not just being like make fun of it. Like he waited until the right time in history, to roll this out,
which would have made a tie-in with the main event. I mean, with the women even more so.
Yeah, that's why.
I will say,
we even had JR there to talk about it.
That's what I will say. You bringing it out about JR reminded me. When I realized he was on the call for the women's match, I was mad because I was like, typically, he's not the same JR that he used to be.
Yeah,
and especially when it comes to women's wrestling, he is not generally. It's like the current version of women's wrestling. I don't want to hear him call women's matches. I was pleasantly surprised at how much he enjoyed that. And it seemed like it was genuine. Like when JR, you can tell when JR is passionate about something and when he likes something because he put those women over constantly. The entire match, he was putting them over, putting over their story, putting over what they were actually doing in front of us. And he just kept saying, I've never seen men or women do this ever. He's like, I've been in wrestling for 50 years and I've never seen this. Like, and he seemed genuine. It wasn't like somebody's in his ear, like, put this match over. Like, it felt like JR genuinely believed what he was saying. And he also did really great commentary Who's match? There was another match that he did commentary for this. Oh, it was this week. He did commentary for putting over Speedball, because I guess
that's right. Yeah,
I guess he's never seen Speedball before, and just out there.
Yeah,
like,
he sounded like he'd never seen Speedball.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my God, JR's getting excited like he used to.
Like, he was like, listen, like, Orange Cassidy's great, but before this starts, like, I gotta say this, like, Speedball.
Oh, hey, welcome to the club. You just got you got the Speedball bug. You're welcome.
Right. Welcome. Yes, and so I will give JR a lot of credit for that. I was very appreciative of him putting over the women's match and putting it in a way that didn't feel like it was forced or anything. It felt like JR genuinely enjoyed calling that match. He genuinely enjoyed the story that Tony and Mariah have been telling for 18 months. Like, it felt like JR was very sincere, and I was very relieved, and I was glad to be wrong, because I assumed the worst. I heard JR, and I told Iggy, I said, why is JR calling this match? And then he started talking, and I was like, and when the match was over, and I was like, all right, I was wrong. JR proved me wrong. It's like, I will give him that. So I appreciate that.
It's so frustrating, because I think the heart of Jim Ross is a wrestling fan, just like all of us.
Mm-hmm.
He just loves wrestling, just like us. It's just, I mean, we all get old, we all change, our bodies change. He's dealing with long-term chronic illness. But whatever. I like seeing that in overall. It's good for us. It's good for him. It was great for the match. So
yeah, Fernando has a little bit of a different take. He said he loves JR, but he should only call matches that feature veterans, not young talent or women's wrestling. He represents the old guard. Unfortunately, he does, and that's generally how he comes off, which is why I will gladly give him props for the way he called Tony and Mariah, because what you're talking about, Fernando, that's how I thought he was going to call it. I was mad when I heard him, because I was like, he's going to shit all over these women, because unfortunately that's kind of what he's done the last 4 years.
He has no real good,
and he is. That's not to say that he hasn't contributed a lot to the industry, but it got to the point when he was calling regular stuff where he was just, I didn't want to hear JR.
He was just too out. He got too old for what he was doing. He struggled with how to handle it, and it sounds forced when you're trying to stumble over saying the right or wrong word about a lady, and it's like, just call it like an athletic. It's easy. I always one of my favorite people that could teach people. I mean, they can't put Renee on the table because she'll kill everyone. Right. But and they need her backstage. But Julie Foudy, who used to play for the U.S. women's national team for soccer, she is also a commentator now and does. And I'm sure you've seen her because you've watched ESPN and you've flipped through and she's been on before. And she does an awesome job of calling the sport. And she's a lady. So it's like, if you need somebody's help, there's literally people who do this.
Dana Scott.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, right there. It's right there in your own business. But if you need a little help from someone who's really good at it, who's been doing it for one of the first people, because she has a really good way of, she does great commentary, but also does funny things where they were talking about how the women don't so the women don't get dehydrated, and they were doing testing. She's like, yeah, you pee, and if your pee is clear, you're hydrated, and if it isn't, you're not. She's like, that's the test. And I was like, I love you, Julie Foudy. You are the best. She was my favorite. I always call it passing the Julie Foudy test.
There you
hydrated.
Go.
It's just so funny because she was just so. She's like, they're not testing. They're just, if your pee is clear.
Right.
It was awesome.
Maria says that he has called too many bra and panties matches during the Attitude Era.
That's exactly right.
Yes. And it comes over, and you could hear that in his matches when he would call them. And that, I got so annoyed with him for a long time. And again, that's why my initial reaction to hearing him on that match was I immediately was annoyed, because I was like, he's going to do what he always does. And I was wrong, and I'm glad to be wrong. And I don't know how often he'll be around for stuff like that. But now, because, they have a pretty good team.
Yeah.
And then, so I will give him props there, because, he proved me wrong, because I thought he was going to do exactly like Fernando and Maria said. That's where I thought we were going with this. And He luckily did not do that. But yes, speaking of Speedball, and I guess we'll just move into the aftermath of what has happened. So because I was trying to figure out which order I wanted to do this because we didn't have an order. We were just like, we'll talk about the aftermath, and I did not think about what order to talk. And I was like, there's two big things. We talked about the Tony stuff, or we talk about the Speedball stuff. But I guess since we're already talking about the women, we'll stick with that, and then we'll get into the Speedball stuff. So obviously, Tony, as we have mentioned, Tony comes out Wednesday night, and she's like, I still love her. Story's over, but I'm still here. And she has this really great Tony Storm promo where she's talking to the women only and tells them to drop their keys in the bowl so they can get this orgy started. Then you have some man. Can I come? No. She's not talking to you. She's not talking to any man. She's talking to the women's division. Shut the hell up and mind your business. It doesn't concern you. Don't ruin this.
I love her so much, right? I love what Tony is doing right now. Every week, she makes me feel like I am so... She found it. She figured it out. And now she is just... God, she might be the best promo on AEW right now.
She's a phenomenal promo.
She's up in the... she's in the discussion.
Funny. Yeah,
I love it. I love her coming out in the old school, the trunks, the old school bathing suit is my, oh my God, I love that. I'm such a nerd for that. I'm like, she's like Luthez right now.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
See the way she came out for the Hollywood ending match, and she's in like the old school, like, basically looks like a swimsuit. But then you have Mariah, who comes out like she's at a wedding, and she has a taser in her bouquet. Somebody said the next day, they were like, I feel like we moved on way too fast from the fact that Mariah May had a taser
in her bouquet.
In her wedding bouquet. But I like the dynamic and the presentation that they both had for that match. And then Tony continues that with, on Wednesday, calls out the women. She's like, first of all, as we mentioned, she calls out Jon Moxley and says that the other world title is in a briefcase, which thank God she called him out on national TV. Good for her. Then she talks about, and then of course talks about Mercedes and all her, all the belts she has. And so she's like, if you want to come get this belt, come out here. And so Megan Bain said, and we all knew, I was like, well, somebody's coming clearly, because she's lit. Unfortunately, it was not Nyla, because generally, even though she's wrestled Tony before, Nyla is generally the one when a woman wins a title. Nyla is generally the first opponent. Was not Nyla. It was Megan Bain, which it should be Megan Bain.
Right.
You're bringing her in as this big deal.
About time.
You have her as this monster that just beats. You have her basically doing what people thought Camille was going to do.
Right.
And that's what Megan Bain does. And she takes out Tony. Then we see later on in the women's match that after the match was over, Stat was out there. She targets Stat. She targeted, because Willow was out there too, I think, right? Was it Willow out there on Wednesday?
I think she was out on Wednesday.
And she took out.
She came out.
Yeah, she came out. She took her out too.
Yeah.
So she's targeting champions. She's been feuding with Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa, another women's champion. And then they wrestled one-on-one last night, and she had a 9-minute match, which is the longest. I think that's the longest match she's had in the company. So she proves that, yes, she can squash women, but also she can wrestle for extended periods of time. She can, she can do both, which is, get you a woman who can do both, because that's what we have with Megan. And then, obviously Tony comes out and confronts her, and she puts her in the, what is it? Fate's Descent is what they're calling her finisher. Thank God they quit calling it that. They weren't calling it anything.
The finishing move.
They're like, we can't call it the F5 because obviously who that is associated with. So then they weren't calling it anything. And then finally,
I thought she said she wanted to, or no, that's Mariah May, right? Her finishing move is called the finishing move.
No, that's Harley Cameron.
Oh, okay. Harley Cameron. Sorry. That's who it was.
Her finishing move is called the finishing move.
The finishing move. Okay.
Even though Nyla was like, it's Feel the Wrath. Okay. She was like, Feel the Wrath was okay. All right, Harley. Okay. So then we have, I don't know. I haven't really seen, maybe it's just because I spend less time on social media, or maybe it's just because of the people I follow. I have not seen the pushback about Megan Bain, but apparently from what you're saying, it seems like some people don't think Megan Bain should be the one targeting Tony. Is that
Oh
the
yeah, that seems to be. There's a bunch of
why?
people out there.
Who else is it gonna be?
I mean, there was some bickering over the fact that apparently Brian and Dave said that she was a step down, which I was like, well, first of all, that just shows me that you're not watching women's wrestling right now.
Well, it
And-
makes perfect sense because she came from Stardom, which is exactly where Tony came from and how we got the Mariah story.
Right.
And then you have Megan Bain, like, not that Megan Bain is going to do the same thing that Mariah did, but she has the Stardom pedigree as well. So
this is where I kind of had my issue, and the issue that I saw, which was like, okay, so a bunch of people who don't know who Megan Bain is yet. Like a new guy comes in, like a new person comes in, and if you don't know who they are, they're establishing who they are. So for the people who don't know who Megan Bain is, she's coming in and establishing herself as some chick that's beating everybody up and wants to take the thing, and she thinks she's fancy. And who is this chick? Well, find out. Stick around. It's called storytelling. But then there's those of us who also know.
Literally showing you she's targeting former champions in both the women and the TBS championships. That's
showing you. She's establishing who she is.
Story.
Relax. Like, and then the other thing is that then the idea that she's a step down is just that's just ignorant. I mean, for lack of a better way of putting it, that shows me your lack of knowledge of other women that are out there in the wrestling sphere doing wrestling in other promotions.
Right.
Where like you get Jim Bally on his show yesterday, who follows or has historically followed Stardom, and so he knew her and he knew about and so he's like saying what you're saying, which is the exact same thing, is who else would it be? Why else did you bring her in?
Or they were supposed to bring her. Yeah, they signed her a year ago. Let her, or whatever. God, I guess it's been more than a year ago now. They signed her. Because Tony said, like, at the time when they signed her, he was like, I wanted her. Like, I did whatever it took. And he was like, she already had plans to go to Stardom. And I said, fine, I will sign you. Go to Stardom. She wrestled in Stardom for like 9 months, I think. I'm sure somebody will tell me the correct answer, but I believe it was like 9 months or something. And then, there was some weird stuff where she may or may not have been signed and they brought her back, or who knows. There was some weird stuff with that. But like literally, that's what she was there for. She was it feels to me like this was the plan all along. Mariah is the story first. Now we have Megan Bain. Megan Bain is next. That is who is going to dethrone Tony after she gets the title back from Mariah. Like, it felt like that was always the plan to me. I mean, maybe I'm way off with this.
But that's, I think,
that's a media call question for Tony.
Well, beyond that, I think it's even though we don't necessarily watch the promotions as religiously as some of our followers do, we are aware and have seen these women either wrestle in other events, or we have at least paid attention to the fact that they're wrestling in Japan. And I don't watch, but I know who Momo Watanabe is. Who
I know who Bozilla is. I don't know
Azumi is. Who I mean,
I hear Bozilla's name all the time. Bozilla's actually wrestling Megan at I think it's Spring Break. I think at Joey Janela's Spring Break. That's where that match is happening, and it's the first time that Bozilla has ever wrestled in the U.S. But I've never seen Bozilla wrestle, but I've heard Bozilla's name a lot. Like, so that tells me. But so that's like, okay. So what about the people who didn't know who Julia was? If Julia came into this or Stephanie Vacker at this point, if neither one of Stephanie Vacker came in and she challenged Mercedes, and a lot of people didn't know who she was.
Yeah, it just, to me, and I didn't listen to the actual episode, so I can't I don't want to over speculate on this. It was just the backlash that I saw where people were like, and it just seemed to come from the sentiment seemed to come from people that just are like, who's this new person that I don't know? It came from a place of ignorance to me, more of a place of. And in the case of all of the wrestling community, that's fine. I'm used to that. We're all used to that. We're like, who's this guy? And if you're a New Japan fan, how many times have we been like, who the hell is this guy? And by the end of the tournament, it's like, I love Lance Archer. I love Mark Davis and Kyle Fletcher.
Yes, right. Exactly.
I mean, it's happened so many times, I can't even count. The Great O'Khan is awesome. He started out, I was like, what is this? This is dumb.
I saw him when he came and he still was covering his face.
Took me a long time to get into Great O'Khan. Like,
right.
You know, but
yeah.
Hey, it's called Watch the Show. Gato never lets you down. Like, I mean, listen, I get it with Tony.
She's telling you, like you said, she's telling you who she is. She's targeting former champions.
This is a common wrestling gimmick. This is like a common angle in wrestling where a new person shows up and takes out.
I guess it's a woman doing it. We don't know how to react to that. And
it's fine. I don't care if you have an opinion on Megan Main or whatever. My issue with like Dave saying it is that, again, you style yourself a historian, but you speak from a place of ignorance, and those two things can't be together. It's like, if this is not your preference, that's fine.
Right.
But if you're recording it from a historical perspective, then you need to include the current women's history of wrestling.
Well, and Jermaine is right. And I'll go back. There's some really other great comments that I want to get to. But Jermaine said this, and he's correct. Megan Bain was with AEW before. She was in Dark. It wasn't this character because Megasis, I don't think, was even a character. She was not doing.
No, I think that's developed in New Japan.
But she did wrestle in Dark because that's how I remember watching her and I had heard her name. So when I had heard that they started her before she even went to Stardom, or that they had signed her, I was like, oh, that should be a really good pickup. I've seen her a little bit and she seems really great. Then she went to Stardom. And so, like, yes, Jermaine is right. She was featured there. So let me go back to some of these comments. And so Daza says, Tony has worked her ass off to make her persona work and mix it into her wrestling. She's been amazing. There's nobody doing what Toni Storm is doing and has been doing for the last 18 months.
She's bringing out the best in, like, she is for good is exploiting like the best possible situation with AEW's women's television right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that she's really putting the division over and not saying we have the best division and not saying anything. She named names last night. Like she made it clear that and it, like you said, the other belt's in a briefcase.
Right. And she called him out for it, which she should. Her belt is just as important. Fernando says, I think AEW should strap the rocket to the back of Megan and beat Timeless Tony and Dynasty. Tony has already won a big feud with me, and the loss of Megan won't hurt her. And you're going into a new into the women who are next. Like she did it for Mariah.
You could
do it for Megan. Daza says, I don't take anything Brian and Dave say about women's wrestling seriously. I think you are not alone in that boat. But as I had said, I had not seen any of it, and it's probably because I don't keep up with what they say.
You don't. And I wouldn't have accepted.
Am I surprised? Not in the least. Even from whether it's Brian or Dave or just men wrestling fans in general. No offense to the men who are watching this, but in general, I am not surprised in the least. But it's unfortunate that people who know wrestling are being this.
Well, if you don't have, because again, if you don't know enough about the thing that you're talking about, maybe refrain from talking about it.
But they're paid too, so I guess.
Well, yeah, but so are a lot of our other colleagues in this space, and they don't.
Well, they should educate themselves then. Or at least, in the very least, see it in the way that we see it, which is.
Meanwhile, on their very network, you have Jim Valley saying, "This is not a step down. What are you talking about?" Because he knows about Stardom, and he called a Stardom freaking event with Fumi. I mean, they were. Pacific Rim is like one of my favorite podcasts. I turned off all the other wrestling podcasts and all those things, but my friend and I, who introduced me to Jim and Fumi, it's like hands down that's the best one, and it's because they talk about history and they talk about the differences, and Fumi can make great correlations between, like, think about that as if that was like Hulk Hogan. He was like our Hulk Hogan, or he was like our Andre the Giant, and it's awesome. And so I love that podcast. So that's like my wheelhouse. But they actually watched it so they can speak to it. And so he was like talking about Megan Bain, because he can talk about her. He's like, she had this relationship with Tony and these things. And it's like, so it's that it's set up.
Right.
For those of us who understand.
Like, that was the whole thing going back to Deanna and Tony. Mm-hmm. Back when Deanna first came in, she talked about her friendship with Tony. They had the matching tattoos, and that she got. Yeah. And Deanna's second or her very first pay-per-view was a title match against Toni Storm, and that's Timeless Tony, and that's what they brought in. And then when she was Timeless, she was like, I don't remember her. I don't know this fan. I don't, she did that.
I don't know how you can call anything a step down until we've had 3 appearances, or 5, I guess. She's beaten up like 5 champions at this point or something. But I mean, her appearances have been to come in and beat champions down.
Right.
Like, how can you say anything about what angle is next on whether it's right? How can you determine if the angle is going to fail based on the evidence we have thus far?
Right. Exactly. And Brad says, people think Megan is too new, and again, Megan is too new, but Deanna faced her in her very first pay-per-view match. Like,
both Stat and Willow are faces.
Again, Deanna, and Deanna is she's a former multi-time champion coming over from TNA, but she's still in her very first pay-per-view match. She wrestled Toni Storm.
But Brad's entire point is correct, is that they're both faces, and they're not doing they're doing a face versus a heel, because Tony's a face
and now. Also, Willow is doing TJPW stuff. Like, she's busy doing some other things right now. Fernando says that Megan looks like a huge star, like Jade when she debuted. Yes, I think that's an accurate comparison. Venkat says Megan Bain is the only heel built up at the moment. Again, to go with Brad's point. Then Brad says this is what Megan did in Stardom. She showed up, became a force, and went after their world champion, which was Tam Nakano at the time. And then she shows up in AEW, becomes established, and went after their world champion Tony. Wow, it's like they know what it looks like. Again, as sometimes as frustrating as Tony Khan is when it comes to women's wrestling, it sounds like he is at least paying attention a little bit. That he knows. Tony,
it was again. I caught the talk about it because it was getting bounced around even in the Discord a little bit, and it's like, I don't. That's you may not like this. May not be a presentation that resonates with you, and that's fine. Like, if it doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't. But that doesn't mean that the thing is DOA. I think
the pay-per-view is in 3 weeks. Tony has to have an opponent, and Megan is making herself the only viable opponent right now, because Stat came out there and has been helping Thunder Rosa. She's trying to repair her friendship with Willow. Willow still does not trust her, so that's its own thing that they're dealing with. Then last night, Thunder Rosa, she gets beat down by Megan Bain. Chris Statlander went up there and picked her up, and then she saw Luther carry Tony away, and so Stat picked up Thunder Rosa, and they held hands as they were being carried to the back. Like, so,
and that's the best Statlander. Her doing like benching Renee and stuff is like things that we need to see in our life,
because they didn't give it. I will say they didn't give Chris enough time to try to establish herself as the heel. But it wasn't working in those few weeks. So they course corrected really quickly and are trying to fix it. And she's still seen as, being a baby face. And so if they had left her as a heel, then sure, maybe that's where we would be. Maybe that would be the match we're having at Dynasty. But it makes sense for it to be Megan Bain at this point. And Daza's right. Let's face it. A lot of guys in podcasts don't care about women's wrestling. No, they sure don't. Bozilla is I saw this, or Venkin says, I don't know if this is about Bozilla or if this is about, this might be about, because 6 months around 66 matches and 1 match during Mania week last year. This might be a reference.
That's probably Megan. I would assume that's Megan Bain's stats for last year wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah, you know it. You know it, boy. I got you.
Daza says, I remember when Jamie Hayter appeared in AEW and guys on the old Facebook fight game were like mocking and going, am I supposed to know her when she'd been big in Stardom?
Thank you, Daza, for
Daz sounds on brand.
I mean, Daza's in the thing.
No, I know, but I appreciate you bringing that back, because you're correct. It's the same thing
I
happening
just think
here.
it's kind of the same curmudgeonly sort of stuff you get about this. Yeah. She is.
Johnson says, I also got to say, those of us guys that support women's wrestling get side-eyed somewhat as if we're odd, and I really think that. Oh, no, I know that you do, and I know that you get side-eyed for your support of women's wrestling. I know a lot of you do, and that's unfortunate because you're out here, you guys are out here being loud right along with us, which is what we need. Women can say so much, but unfortunately, in a lot of spaces, men's voices matter more than women, and so we need men who are supportive of women wrestling to also be just as vocal, to listen, because when it comes out of a woman's mouth, some men are like, it means zero to them. And so when another male wrestling fan says it, then they're like, oh wait, just like in other situations, but I'm not going to go into that right now.
As I like to joke with Bob, can you say what I just said, but in your voice?
Right. Exactly. So sometimes we do
tell that person.
Sometimes we do need these people who are in our chat to also be saying online, the same things that we're saying, because it's in a man's voice, like you said.
Well, and I mean, especially for some of the people, we've got a lot of dads of girls in our group, and so they're asking us questions because they legitimately are trying to be good girl dads, which is awesome. And inspiring. Yeah. And also, it's really hard on men because they're constantly being told to be good dads, but then when they try to be a good dad, they're like, why are you being a good dad?
Right. Not like that. Don't be like that.
Well, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. You just said it. Not like that. It's like literally the general, they want to cherry pick everything. That's everything from like the First Amendment to parenting and everything in between. I mean, it's like we want it all the ways, but we don't want to put any of the actual like effort or infrastructure into it. So let Megan take that belt. Tony, go after Mercedes, please. I
won't be. I would not be mad at that. However, if the end goal is Athena Mercedes, what do you do with Tony? Like, that's the only thing, is like, I do feel like Tony is a transitional champion. Mm-hmm. It's certainly very possible she loses at Dynasty and they go ahead. Maybe they do set her on a path to go after Mercedes for now, and then Mercedes defeats her and then sets her sights on Athena. That could, they could do that as well.
I mean, they're teasing Athena by sending Billy Starks in all the time.
That's what they've been doing with her.
So they're definitely planting the seeds.
They're definitely moving that. They're furthering the storyline with them.
Isn't she wrestling Mercedes? Isn't Billy wrestling Mercedes?
Yeah. Yes. That's what's this week, because Mercedes is getting ready to go. Is it? I can't remember when. When does she? Somebody in the chat probably knows. She's going to the UK Mercedes is. She's got matches coming up because she has that UK title, and so I don't know if that's because I don't know if she's going to be here around Dynasty because she's going to be in the UK, so they're doing it now. I can't. I think that's what somebody said. I haven't looked to see for sure, but I believe somebody said and told me that that's what they thought that match was happening.
This coming Dynasty, they moved Dynasty to this time of year, or are there going to be two like Grand Slam?
2 Grand Slams is what they're going to do.
So they're doing 2 Dynasties.
He asked. The Dynasty was in April last year, too. Oh, okay. So they didn't move. No, it was in April last year.
Oh, okay. I guess my timing is just
that's when Swerve won the title.
I feel like it just happened. I'm so confused.
It says because there's too many Dynasties. Because he likes that word. So Wrestle Dynasty and the Dynasty. But Dynasty happened last April. The first one was last year.
That's why I'm getting confused. One is just plain old and one is
Wrestle. Just Dynasty, and then Wrestle Dynasty is the one.
It's the Japanese one.
Wrestle Dynasty is the one that has the 5 companies involved.
Gotcha.
And we don't know if that show's coming back. We have not heard if they're bringing that
I'm going to give Tony a quick tip that they gave us in screenwriting school, which is don't make everybody's name the same thing. Don't make everybody's name start with the same letter.
He said in an interview with TV Guide recently, and I can't tell if he was serious or not, but because it's Tony, he probably was. But he said the soap opera Dynasty was one of his all-time favorite shows, and it's one of his guilty pleasures that he goes back and watches. That's why he named Dynasty was after that. And then so when Wrestle Dynasty came along, they just
That would track because that show had such a wrestling ending to it that
Yes. So I was like, he could have been joking, but knowing what we know about Tony, he was probably telling the truth.
I mean, I'm like 80-20, maybe 90-10 he's telling the truth.
He probably
I would
is.
not have zero problem believing that Tony Khan is a Dynasty fan. Like,
Oh
that-
no!
the
Well, he
show.
also said he was
And
a
for
fan
those
of
of you who don't know what the heck all we're talking about, there was a show in the 1900s called Dynasty, and it was a
soap opera.
nighttime adult soap opera, if I remember all correctly.
It was
JR and so forth. There was a JR in that one.
Yes. And their big show was Who Shot JR. That was their big storyline that they spent a lot of time on.
And this is where, for those of you who, when you get the "It was all a dream" meme,
yes,
that's where it comes from, kids.
Yes. Well, it comes from that, but then there's also it also comes from the Biggie Smalls. It was just a dream. It's all a dream, and it was just a dream. The two of those, but yes, they both are from the 1900s.
Yes, so.
That's where this comes from.
We got in the Wayback Machine, and we took a left in Albuquerque like we're supposed to, and so just to fill those of you in who've never seen a VHS tape or didn't know that there were adult soap operas on the nighttime.
Of the nighttime show, it's still apparently one of his guilty pleasures. He named
and that show. I mean, back in its day, before there was, I mean, that show was viral. Essentially at its time.
Yeah, it was a huge. That was like the thing that everybody talked about was, who shot JR, because JR Ewing was the big character.
It was so, I mean, it was such a huge deal. Like I was a little kid basically, but remember all about it. So
yeah.
So that was Dallas. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you, Bob.
Oh, you're correct. JR was Dallas.
That's
Dynasty
right.
but Dynasty was a soap opera. That was the one that had wasn't Elizabeth Taylor on?
Maybe you're right. Yes,
Elizabeth Taylor on Dynasty.
Dallas and Dynasty confused.
Yes, because Robert Ewing was on Dallas. That's right.
You're right.
Yes,
thank you.
Or J.R. Ewing, rather. Yes.
Yes, thank you. That's his wheelhouse. He would.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you for the correction.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
got my stuff confused. Jermaine says last night at the HOG show, they kept mentioning Megan Bayne versus Mercedes. One thing to have that match for the Hog Championship, or it could have been another championship. That's what they kept hinting at, because right now Megan Bayne is the HOG Women's Champion. And she's also wrestled frequently in GCW. She wrestles men and women there. Day Part
started out wrestling men.
I know.
That's all she did.
Because that's
kicking their ass. I actually felt pretty excited because she's my size. That's what I am officially put down on paper as well. The government rounds up, but thanks. I was like, yeah.
Day Park 14 says, I hope Jamie Hayter is able to get her visa settled before Double or Nothing so that she can get a revenge from Tony from Double or Nothing 23 that took her out for a year. Yes, I hope that happens too. And see, they don't need a title to do that. She could drop Tony could drop the title. And Jamie is somebody, once she gets things figured out, but Jamie is also a babyface. And she is not going to wrestle Tony for the title right yet. Unless they hold on to it, and the story would work for them to get her revenge. So if she holds on to the title at Dynasty, and then if Jamie's stuff is settled, I would also accept that. Yes. Hassan says, hello, host and chat. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hello,
and
everyone.
I like Mike Bailey. That was my first time seeing him. I have some thought. I will tell you about Mike Bailey. But we love him here in this house.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have known about Speedball if it wasn't for Sam showing me all the lovely wrestling that surrounds.
I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for our friend Doug, who was on the show before. Yep. Fernando says he has 3 daughters. And
good brother Doug.
Yes. Doug was the one.
Bless you, Fernando.
Doug would always say, like, when it's because we'll have to. I'll hold that story because we have to give you. There's some Speedball lore that happened with him prior to him getting signed. So we'll talk.
Oh, that's right, because Doug knows like Speedball's entire history.
Yeah, there's some lore, so we'll get to that in a second. Because believe me, I had to ask Mel because and I even asked Nikki. I was like, who do I go with our slate this week? Do I go with Toni Storm because she's Toni Storm, or do I go with Speedball because it's Speedball? And I was like, which one? And Mel was like, I guess we go with Toni, but Speedball could work. So we went with Toni, but we love Speedball. And
we love Speedball.
Grace says that, look, I want to see the women's matches more than most of the men's matches because they're more compelling. Yes. And I forgot to go back and read the article, but my dad sends articles without reading them. I think he says, oh, it's wrestling, so he sends them to me and Nikki. But
it's like,
apparently the
article, Dad.
I saw the headline. I forgot to go back and read it, but apparently Ted DiBiase said that women's wrestling, I assume he means the WWE, but he was saying the women's wrestling is more compelling than the men's wrestling. Which is interesting because I have a lot of thoughts about Ted DiBiase. However, if Ted DiBiase can admit it, then maybe some of you other grifters should also. Vinkin said, I think it's going to be Billy versus Mercedes that will establish Diamante as minion number 1. She's going to go for Mercedes, yes, and then we get to Athena, yes, because they are setting up Diamante. She kind of went after they teased that on ROH that Diamante is going after Athena next, which will be good. Yeah, and I saw this too. Yeah, that they said apparently people body shamed Billy in her dress. First of all, don't fucking do that. And second, I thought her dress was really cute. Yeah, Billy tweeted and was talking about. She said, people think I'm weird. Or she told Mercedes, she said, yeah, I know you think I'm weird, but I am weird. And she said that. And in that same tweet, she said that somebody fat shamed her for the dress she was wearing.
Well, that person needs to get a life then.
Yes. Dawson said, I won't mention the name, but a podcast on Fight Game Media says Momo versus Mercedes didn't have to be on the pay-per-view. I can guess who said it, and they're wrong. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Oh man, we all love each other no matter if we agree or not. Just so you know.
And then we were getting corrected in the timeline that Joan Collins was on. Yes. Oh, you know what? And Tony was talking about Joan Collins in that interview.
There we go. Yes. It was Joan Collins. Okay, so that's like super like, oh man, that's like drama. That's so
Kenny says Megan has been all over indie on IWTV. I've seen her with tons of bangers over the last year. Yeah, she is all over IWTV. I'm always getting emails from IWTV because I don't have it. I'm not subscribed to the service anymore, but I apparently always forget to unsubscribe from their email.
Sometimes, like, if you don't know, then don't say anything.
Yes.
Like, sometimes less is actually more. Sometimes you can say, I love this because you love the match. You gave it the stars. You didn't short them the quarter. You gave them all of the stars. Like, just enjoy the match and watch the angle if you don't know. Don't
let it play out.
How can you say something's a step down if you don't know anything about the person that you're talking about?
Right.
You need to let it play out if you don't know. That's my that was my the only contention I have. I'm not like, you're allowed to like whatever kind of wrestling you want to like. But, here's my butt. If you're going to say that you're somebody that's like historically covering the wrestling, well, there's all kinds of, and you are covering almost all of the wrestling. But you're not covering some of the wrestling, and so don't talk about that wrestling. Because clearly you're not interested in that wrestling.
Listen, or you're going to sound like us trying to talk about Dallas and Dynasty.
Yeah, right. We have no idea what we're talking about.
I was a child when that was on.
Me too. Sorry, we got our adult dramas, our 80s adult dramas crossed. Or maybe 70s. Who knows?
Nikki said, Ted DiBiase did mean WWE, and that's right, because he said a Fit Finley, which obviously, because Fit Finley knows what Fit Finley's great.
I mean, let's be real. Someone like Ted DiBiase thinks there's one kind of wrestling, and he always will.
Yes. Again,
nothing else exists because that's Because that's normal and real.
I will get off on another tangent if I say what I was going to, if I follow
No,
up
don't say anything.
I thought about.
We don't need to talk about that guy right now.
No, and it actually was not about, it was
Well, it
not
doesn't
about
matter.
his,
It's fine.
not about the public thing. It was just, I was going to say, it's just about, it made me, because you said he only knows one type of wrestling, and that made me think of Randy Orton, because, you know, he leveraged, as any smart businessman should do, said that he asked around what AEW would offer him, went back to the office and said, hey, AEW would offer me this. Randy Orton is somebody who knows one style of wrestling. He would not be able to hang in AEW. I feel very confident in saying that. And I say that as somebody who was a longtime Randy Orton fan. He does one style of wrestling. He's a third generation style of that wrestling.
Yep, that's exactly right.
But that's what it made me, when you said that, it made me think that there's nothing wrong with that. No. Randy has made lots of money, and he's still wrestling 20 years later.
He's richer than I am by a long
And he nearly lost he also nearly could not come back from injury last year, because his back was so messed up that the doctors told him not to wrestle again, and he did it anyway, and here he is. Then he missed, and then he was out for 4 months. The storyline reason is because Kevin Owens gave him a package pile driver, and that storyline, that's why. But he just came back at Elimination Chamber, and he had a match Friday night against Carmelo Hayes. Yes, Randy Orton does only have one. Kenny said, you're giving me PTSD with all the nasty talk. I do not mean to do that, so I don't want to think about her at all.
That's not okay.
Adam Legend said, Randy Orton used to be my bathroom break when I went to WWE shows at WrestleMania 31. I went to get food during his entrance and made it back to my seat in time for RKO at the end of the match. Sounds like you saw all you needed to see.
You saw everything.
Sean says, why is anyone listening to Ted DiBiase in 2025 anyway? Yes, he did defraud the government out of money that could have been used for the less fortunate. Everybody got a price. Yes, yes.
True that.
I make meat said, after 20 years, I still don't get Randy, but I hated him as a kid. Now he's just part of the furniture.
He really is.
Hello, Sean. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, Randy is somebody that, like, I really enjoyed when I was younger, and I enjoyed what he was doing, but also I thought it was extremely attractive, and so that played a big factor into it.
We all have crushes on things. It's fine.
And then as I got older, I realized, wow, he is very limited in what he does, but he is good what he does at his. He knows what his limits are, and he sticks within it, and he's good at it. Like, and he's made a ton of money at it, so good for him.
Yep,
good for him. And now he's back, and he wrestled Carmelo Hayes because for some reason, Triple H apparently hates Carmelo Hayes. He's killed it in NXT, and then on the main roster, he's just, I mean, he was finally picking up some wins, but he sent him on this big losing streak for whatever reason. It just felt like he was on Alcatraz, as we talked about last week. And so at least he got a match with Randy Orton, so maybe they're turning around with him, because Carmelo, yeah, he was very good in NXT, and he should be a bigger deal than how they've booked him. So I'm hoping this match with Randy Orton is kind of a turning point, because he did pick up some wins, but they were over Tozawa and R-Truth, which, again, love both of those guys, but Carmelo Hayes should be picking up some wins. Like, he had a really good, they did a best of 5, best of 7 series. I think it was best of 5 that he did with Andrade. It was a good series, and Andrade ended up winning the series, and then they sent him on a losing streak for a little bit. I don't know why. Maybe he made somebody mad, or maybe Paul just doesn't like him, but that's veering into a whole other thing. But sometimes it's what happens when I get stuck watching that company.
Yeah.
But Carmelo is good, and somebody I'd like to see, and I love.
She's getting paid for it, folks. That's the reason.
Yes, it was a best of 7. Okay. Oh, that LA Knight hijacked, and look at what we're doing with. I will be here for a long time, and since we're talking about WWE,
I was going to say that's a good chance to plug the fact that you're going to be on the Wrap again.
I will be on the Wrap again this week. Salty Scott is still taking some time away. Keela was kind enough to invite me on 2 weeks ago, and then Paul Fontaine was on there last week, and I am coming back again this week to talk about WWE, except I've got to figure out. So Raw is in Europe, or WWE is in Europe for the next 3 weeks. So tomorrow Raw is on at 3 p.m. Eastern time. The next week it's on at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and then the Monday after that it's on at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I have a day job.
I was just gonna say that's super convenient for your shoot job.
Yeah, so they told me, my editor was like, just work your normal shift. You can pick up some stories that are available. So, but I think what I'm gonna do, because I told this to Nikki, and I was like, wait a minute, I have to watch Raw because I have to know what to talk to Tequila about. So I was like, I guess I'll just have it on tomorrow during the day. I just won't be writing about it so that I know what I'm talking about. Because that's been I guess one of the upsides.
Yeah, I was really glad it was you.
Now I know what's happening, and I can repay Keela start to repay Keela for, she filled in for me a lot last year when I was doing some post-surgery recovery and was not ready to come back. And she is, and I always enjoy talking to Keela. Keela's great.
Yeah,
I love
Keela's
her.
a lot.
And so I was like,
I was willing to submit myself to Raw if nobody else could do it, just because I love Keela that much.
Yes.
It would be my first experience with it on Netflix. I'm sure it would be wild.
I bet. Yeah, I make beats since early Raw here in the UK. I'm happy. Yes, some of my fellow writers that cover WWE, they're in the UK, so it's like late at night for them when we're watching live, and so he is very excited about normal time wrestling.
Yeah, I have that with some pals that are from the GMT.
And then we had the time change, which threw him off last week.
Because they're not changing. Some of them aren't changing their clocks anymore, and some of them don't change at the same time as us.
Yes, exactly.
Like there's a period in there's like a 2-week period where Ireland and us are an extra hour apart. So we're 6 hours apart instead of 5 hours.
Yeah, right.
Because they changed their clocks like a week later than us. Although COVID killed everybody trying to stop that. Like, because all of the Euro was going to stop doing that. But
it was past year too. It had gotten as far as like the house stuff, right? And then it like
a lot of states were doing it. Washington State, I believe.
States, like I know Arizona doesn't do it, right? And isn't it Arizona or is it New Mexico?
Feel like there's one in the Mountain Zone, and I think Washington State finally adopted Pacific Standard.
Yeah,
but again, I think a lot of the implementation got derailed by COVID. So everyone's like, because we have a bill here in Michigan that we weren't going to do it anymore, but it got stalled during that time and it's being brought back up. Listen, it's bad for us. It's statistically, empirically proven. Scientists, medical doctors, everybody studied it. We lose 2 weeks of efficiency as a nation every time we do it.
Yeah.
Period. It's bad for business. That should be enough to stop.
You would think that would be enough. He said it's dark. I make beat says it's dark right now. It's 7 p.m. And see, we luckily have, because of that, it's daylight until 7:30, which I am very happy about.
Well, even later here, we're so far north that we get the we freak out, and it's true. It was true in Washington too. I freak out my cousin because he's in Massachusetts, but we're further north, and Ireland's further north, and it's still so it stays light out here. You get 9 o'clock. I mean,
we typically get that later in the summer, it's still light until the sun sets at 8:30, but it's still light outside till 9 o'clock at night.
We get that earlier because we're further north. So when we get the longer daylight hours, we get the longer daylight hours.
That makes sense.
It's so hilarious because we used to do the thing where we would be on the podcast and we would scare Matt because it was dark in Massachusetts, but we'd be like, look, and he's like, ah! And so it's actually a funny thing that they do to each other. To this day, he will send pictures of it being sunny out late at night just to freak Matt out.
I have a friend who moved to Alaska last year.
We have a lot of fun
doing it. It's crazy watching her her stuff on social media and seeing
fun with time.
Yes.
Fun with space time.
Yes, I make beats said it's cold, guys. I gotta get a cup of tea under a blanket. I get it. I understand. Today is, I think, it's only 70 today. Only 70. But we're doing this weird thing while we're still on weather talk, and then we'll go back to wrestling, I promise. But we're in that phase where it's warm during the day, but tomorrow night the low is 38, I think. So I have to bring all my plants back inside. And then I think another night later this week, it's going to get it really warm during the day, but then it's going to dip back down, which happens here now. So it's fun. All right.
Oh, dude, it's hilarious. Michigan already had its own weather. So now it's like, I'm not even kidding. I was like, so it's going to be 80 and then it's going to hail and then it's supposed to be in the teens and then it's supposed to be 40 again and then it'll be 50 and then it's supposed to rain and we're supposed to get thunder snow. And that was all on Monday.
Sounds about right.
I love it because we don't just get the weird weather in the spring. The lakes just do what they want.
Yeah.
So they start their own weather systems alongside of the weather. And that's just like, haha. It was so crazy yesterday because it went from being like, it's going to be really windy to gale warning. I'm like, okay. Gale warning.
Oh,
and it's flat here. There's nothing in the way. So it's just flat. No mountains here. Midwesterners are weird. Big lakes, no mountains. It's crazy.
Yes, there's a bunch of comments. Fernando, I missed this one. In honor of 316 Day, what do you remember the most about Austin's run in wrestling? It was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
It was a lot of. I liked a lot of what he was doing. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. As far as, like wrestling wise, yes, there were, really good matches, but like I remember the persona and the character more than I do his matches, just because for me, that was just, that's what really drew me into him. And that's when I really started because I was a WCW fan for a long time. We did not watch WWE. We didn't do that. That's not what we watch. And then when I was transitioning over into WWE, and obviously like tag team wrestling, if you've been here for 2 seconds, you probably have heard that I'm a huge Hardy Boys fan, in part because they're from my home state. But I love them. I love Edge and Christian. That was my thing. That was what I was into as far as wrestling goes. But I was also in that. So I was also coming in to the Austin 316 character. Like he was already using Austin 316, I think, when I started watching. And I was doing that. And so I was watching his stuff with the Mr. McMahon character and like that whole thing that they were doing. And then The Rock and all of that stuff. So for me, the character stuff is what always stands out for him in the promos and things, because that's what I remember most. And also I wasn't getting pay-per-views. So not that he wasn't having good matches on TV, but like I didn't buy pay-per-views. I didn't go watch them. And so the TV is what I saw. And so for me, that's what always that stands out to me is his character stuff versus his in-ring stuff. That's me personally.
Yeah. For me, I agree with a lot of what you said. It was what I was getting into wrestling for really real for the first time was when he was going and doing his stuff. So, and the Mr. McMahon character, like, one of the most memorable things is still that freaking the hospital room situation was like the thing that stands out so much, and him like driving the ambulance around, and it was just like I shouldn't. It was one of those things where I'm like, why am I enjoying this so much?
Yeah, and then like when he had the gun and he shoots it, and then the little flag drops down and says "bang," like bang. That type of stuff. Like that's what I associate a lot of that stuff with him. And I hear people talk about like his wrestling and stuff, and I'm not to say that I don't, that he wasn't a good wrestler, but for me, he was always. And so for some people, he was
more than the wrestling.
For some people, he was the complete package. Like he was the wrestling before his knees were, giving him issues and. And I think that's another part. I was coming in when his knees were, were starting to give him issues, and he was having to wear the knee braces and things like that. And so I think that's another reason, like the character stuff sticks out to me.
I feel pretty fortunate. I got to see him at WrestleMania 19 in Seattle. So, that was a big, him and Vince McMahon just doing bloody self-mutilation that they don't do in WWE.
Right. Oh, this is something I wanted to go back to. Fernando said he struggles to find the wrap on Wednesday morning. So the wrap is not on YouTube unless they're doing a live stream. Sometimes they will do a live stream after the big WWE shows, or sometimes after the big NXT shows, which obviously are the same thing. I don't know why I separated it into two different things, but usually it's those type of shows. They are wherever you can find podcasts. They are on Apple, Spotify. They're also, if you go to fightgamemedia.com, you can listen to all of the podcasts right there on the website. So as far as what's here on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel every week, it's us, the Dynamite show with Paul and Jeff, and then the Speaking of Strong Style is obviously Thursdays with Jeremy and Steven, and then the Wrap, which is the WWE show, that's all WWE all the time. they are on the podcast side of the actual podcast side of things, where they're not on YouTube unless they're doing live streams. So that's where you can find them Wednesday mornings. There's also the 5-Star Joshi show with Scott Edwards. That's also on the feed. So that's on Apple, Spotify, fightgamemedia.com. You can find that there as well. And I feel like sometimes there was the Boom, but that's kind of not a thing anymore. Sometimes I do the Boom still comes back to do the post AEW shows, but it's usually Kevin Ely and guest for the Boom, because
you're right. It was Hogan because The Rock and Steve Austin wrestled at that WrestleMania.
Yeah,
my bad.
But yes, I
guess I was trying to block out the Terry Bollea portion of the program.
The weather bombshells.
Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. Sometimes.
Maybe one day when we have merch, we'll have a special limited run, the weather bombshells, and we'll have our little logos. And maybe they'll have like an umbrella or something.
Oh, there you go. I see you got it. Instead, they'll be holding umbrellas instead of microphones. We can switch it up every time. We can when we're doing we can put pet leashes when we're talking about.
Can confirm Michigan weather is WWF in the 90s. Anything can happen. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he feels me. This place is wild. I say this a lot, and it's like everywhere I've lived, people if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. I've lived on the Pacific Northwest. I've lived in the Northeast Coast. I've lived in the Middle South, so Virginia range.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan wins that one, guys. Michigan wins. It will be 6 different weathers in the next 6 hours. It just will.
Lucky you.
It's so funny because I'm just I love when I moved here, and I said it a little earlier, but I've lived in a winter state, but we never had what they call here thunder snow, which is that it literally thunders while it's snowing. So you're having a lightning thunderstorm essentially while it's snowing. So it's the weirdest thing you'll ever experience.
It sounds not real. I mean, I know that it is, but this sounds like a movie that Sharknado would.
Yeah, right, exactly. But if you say it to a native Michigander, they're like, "Yeah, thunder snow."
Get it? Yeah.
They're like, "Yeah, thunder snow." Thunder snow. It's normal. Sure. But they're so nonchalant about it. I'm like, but you guys understand that the whole rest of the nation doesn't have that, right? Or if it does, it freaks us the F out because that doesn't happen.
Thunder snow in theaters now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is weird. It's so weird. I remember the first time it happened to me because it was dead middle of the winter, and I was like, TF?
Sean confirms it's a thing.
Thank you. But they're so nonchalant about it. It's the way that thunder snow. You guys don't have that all in the. No, we don't, weirdos. Okay, we don't. I love you. I love living here. It's one of the friendliest places to live. Michiganders.
The weather just sounds like a lot
of fun. But I think you have to be that way to live here because it's just it's so unexpected. It could be 70 in the middle of January. But it's crazy. It's so crazy. It's very. It actually a lot of people think they call Chicago the Windy City because it's windy there. It's actually because the political population changes the weather here, and that is the weather changes a lot in the Midwest.
Yes.
So the idea was that the political climate in Chicago is like the weather here. It changes every 10 minutes. So yeah. So there we go. That quick little sidebar for you.
Yes. So that was
like-
another minute from the Weather Bombshells,
Weather
which we will now be
Bombshells.
using. We
Thank
need
you,
to make a
Kenny.
little graphic to like pop up on the screen.
Like,
that says
yeah.
the Weather Bombshells.
like our silly
spoiler alert. Yes. So bringing it back to wrestling. Let's talk about Speedball Mike Bailey.
Yes, please.
Let's talk about Speedball. So Kenny, obviously, we've talked about, won the international championship, and they're like, let's have a tournament to find him a number one contender because
we love tournaments.
Because we love tournaments. It's a quick little tournament. This isn't a long drawn out one. It's a very short one. We had Wednesday night on Dynamite, we had Wild Card versus Beast Mortos. And then we had Orange Cassidy versus Hechicero in the main event. And then we had last night on Collision, we had Ricochet versus Shibata. And then we also had, I just watched this and just covered it. And why did I just blank on our last match? It was, Mark Davis. It was the Battle of the Marks, literal marks, not the other kind. It was Mark Davis.
People named Mark.
Yes.
Not small M Mark.
Yes, Battle of the Marks, capital M Marks, happened. So bringing it back to Dynamite, we had a wild card spot, and it got announced Tuesday night when I was supposed to be transcribing an article, and I get a text message, and they were like, "Look at this," and I was like, "Oh my god, is it Speedball or is it Josh Alexander?" Those were our guesses, and so we're all, and then of course the intranets is like, it's got to be Speedball, which we all thought. And so Beast Mortos, my tribal chief, so I was really excited about. Yes, Mark did win last night. we did have Mark win, but Beast Mortos, my tribal chief, so I was excited about that. I was like, yay, he's in another tournament. This is a short tournament because the four winners of these matches wrestle this Wednesday night, and tournament's over. So Nikki said a tournament is happening. Mark Briscoe is the permanent intro. He is a permanent entrant now. Beast Mortos, I think, is going to become a permanent
that's
intro.
That's fine with me. I have no issue with that at all. I love it. This was like my favorite thing, actually. Keep telling the story.
Yes. So are you a Mark or a Mark? Yes. Right.
I like that there's someone out there who's like real name is Mark, and they put their name on there as wrestling Mark, and I'm just like, that's so cute. It's like, why not?
Like, and then you have Smart Mark Sterling, smart in quotations Mark Sterling, and he's the lawyer and a wrestler,
which makes total sense.
So then we hear, Beast Mortos comes out, and Nikki and I are like standing in front of the TV, like we're children, waiting to hear, hopefully Brass Monkey, but Tony apparently is not going to fork over the money for it. But it could be a situation like Swerve, where Swerve was so connected to Ain't Nobody that he's like, this is a new face for me, gotta have new music. Kind of feel like that's probably what Speedball did. However, Mikey Ruckus made this theme that part of it does sound like Brass Monkey, and then it goes into this like cool 80s shit. And if you listen, AEW Music posted the whole song, and then Mikey Ruckus quote tweeted it, and it was like pictures of these two guys. I can't remember what movie it was from. It may have been Electric Boogaloo. I can't remember which movie it was from. And they were like break dancers. And then he posted another video, and Mikey Ruckus put his face on it, and he's like break dancing to Speedball's new theme music. And it's called I think it's called Ultima 84, I think is the name of it. It perfectly, if we can't use Brass Monkey, it perfectly encapsulates Speedball Mike Bailey, I think. And so he comes out, huge pop, and he does this thing where he hits people's hands, and then he did the thing he does, which is where he kicks somebody in the hand, which I have seen him do in person multiple times. Speedball is incredible, and I thought it was really interesting that Beast Mortos is the one that they gave this match to, because that's his debut match, and I thought that said a lot about Beast Mortos. And then I was looking to see if they had crossed paths in TNA, because Beast Mortos used to be Black Carouse, for those of you who are not aware. And I found one match on Cage Match where they had it was a tag team match, and they were against each other. But then I think it was Lucha Blog maybe tweeted it, and it was a clip of them from Triple A in 2015, I think. And it was
Mhm.
baby Speedball. Speedball had no mullet. It was short hair. It was short haired Speedball, but that was a really cool thing. So I thought it was really awesome that they gave them that match. I think Beast Mortos was the perfect first opponent for people who do not know who Speedball is. I think that he proved the hype. I think he lived up to the hype. And I guess for those of you who have never seen him before, you can let me know in the comments if you thought he lived up to the hype. But I've been waiting for this for a very long time. I love Speedball.
They booked this match for Sam. When I saw that not only was he debuting, but he was debuting against your tribal chief, I was like, did they like just take Sam's dream debut and put it on the TV or
they
what?
did.
It was hilarious. Like the first words out of my mouth, I went, wait, he's debuting against, oh my gosh.
Yes. Was for me. Maybe it's he knows I'm mad at him for the women not main eventing, so he's like, here, I'll give her this at least.
I was like,
I'll give her.
I can hear Sam freaking out from here, and it's a long way from where she is to where I am. But
yes,
the vibes were in the air, man.
I'm glad you heard it.
It was like, oh, this is perfect. I was so happy.
I was.
So good.
Me too. Yes, and so the Speedball lore, if you were unfamiliar with Speedball. He was killing it on the indies, and then I guess at this point it's been several years now, but a few years ago, he, as you probably can tell, they are Canadian, and they were having visa issues and had a show in the US, decided to come wrestle anyway, and got busted for crossing into the US without a visa, basically. And Speedball was banned from the United States for 5 years. So Speedball had to go wrestle in Japan. They wrestled in Europe. I believe they wrestled in Mexico, I want to say as well, which I guess, yes, that would make, yeah, because I was going to say, I don't know if the timing of that was AAA, but I believe they were also wrestling in Mexico. And then he is married to Veda Scott. And so Veda was having to go to other countries to see. They didn't get married until he was able to come back here, but they were dating at the time, and the only way she could see them in person was to be booked in the same country as them, which is insane. So then when Speedball was cleared to come back to the US, they went to TNA, got a contract like right on the spot, signed with TNA for, I think, 2 years, I want to say. Also, during the More Than Mania weekends, was wrestling like 10 matches in that short period. And so prior to him coming here, Doug was like, when is Speedball 5 years up? When is Speedball? And I was like, why is he so obsessed with Speedball? Like, I have not seen Speedball. I've heard Speedball, I've never seen them. Like, then I saw Speedball wrestle, and I was like, I get it. Now I understand why Doug always was asking, when is 5 years up? Because Speedball is incredible. He looks like nobody else. The things that he does is like nobody else. And he is super kind. I got to meet him last year. In all places, he wrestled in a brewery here in Charlotte. He wrestled,
right, of course.
He wrestled Sean Legacy, who has now been ID'd by WWE, and he also spent some time in Noah. He won some contest that they were having, and he got to go wrestle in Noah for like 3 months. And then they wrestled at a brewery in a tiny little bar. The word of mouth was not great for this show, so there was only like 30 people, which was great and also not great because as many people as possible need to see Speedball. But Nikki could not. Nikki had just had back surgery, so she could not come, and she was very upset because she loves Speedball too. And so I met Speedball afterwards, and I told him, my sister really wanted to come. She's a big fan like I am. Would have been her first time seeing you as well. It's her birthday, or it's near her birthday. It was a week before her birthday, and she's also she just had back surgery. She couldn't be here. And I asked him if he would sign a birthday card. And he did. He signed Nikki's birthday card for me. Sean Legacy also signed Nikki's birthday card.
Nice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nikki corrected me. It was right before she had surgery. I thought, okay. I was thinking you missed it.
But she was
right
in
after.
a lot of pain, if I remember right. She was
Yeah.
like, I can't sit in these seats no matter. I mean, like, you know it's bad when you had to miss out on that at that point. Like she was like right on the edge, and I think also because of the potential for infection might have existed at the time, that it was like a double deal where it was like, even though she was vaccinated, we don't want to risk it.
She was in an extreme amount of pain, and they did. That was the standing room.
If I remember right, she was like miserable. Well,
it was. They did have seats, but they were those like uncomfortable metal seats too, and it just like, and it would have been
all us bad patients.
And it was the main event, so even if we had gone on and watched like a few matches, we would have had to leave, and we would have missed him. And so, fortunately, she did get to see him. We saw him in DPW a couple of times since then, so she did get to see him live. Yes, and he did get well on it. Speedball is super kind. I genuinely, and I saw a lot of that. When they debuted, but also when we got the announcement, the little video aired. A lot of his peers were like, this is great. I'm glad to see good things happening to good people. Like, I just saw that overall consensus. And of course, I can tell you with my one-on-one experience with them, Speedball is incredible. And so I just am very, very excited.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like people all over wrestling from like everywhere were just like, yay, good on you. I'm like, that's really cool. That's telling.
Yes. And then let's see. Let me go back up to hear some of these comments. Sean says, solid debut for Speedball in the tournament when he seems to be finalist. Hopefully he gets some storyline. It could have easily been Josh or Speedball. I think Josh debuts in the Owen. I think you're right. That makes the most sense. And apparently Josh showed up. Maple Leaf Pro had a show this weekend, and I didn't see it, but I saw a couple of tweets saying that he showed up at Maple Leaf Pro this weekend, which makes sense because of
Scott D'Amore has been making the rounds on to talking to people, and he is worth listening to if you haven't listened to at least I've listened to the Garrett and Dave one, but super interesting dude. He is I don't think women's wrestling would be taken as seriously if he hadn't existed. Like, he definitely helped, like the knockouts division and all of that stuff.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like the emphasis that he explicitly put on wanting to have everything at the wrestling show that was possible to have is really interesting stuff. I think he was on Brandon Thurston and John Pollock.
I think I did see that he was supposed to be on there too.
So that one, I don't know if that's behind the paywall or not, that's on the Patreon or not.
And I think Fightful was also interviewing him as well.
He's been making the rounds, and I want like
about it.
Maple Leaf, I think, has booked down here or is planning on it, and I want to go.
They've only had two shows. Well, they've had 4 shows total, but 2. Wait, and I think it's 4 shows because they did.
And I know they're focusing on the Canadian portion of it because it's very like he's talking about how they want to like really, again, like bringing Canadian wrestling back to the fore and like celebrating sort of that. It's not like they're not booking people from other areas. It's just that they're putting a lot of the emphasis on it, and it's and but. Because regardless of what's going on, we have such a close relationship with Windsor. I mean, people live here and work there and vice versa. I know I've said that a million times, but we're practically in Canada if you look at a map.
Right.
So we have a pretty close relationship. So, I mean, him being here and doing that, I'm like, come across the border. And he's already talking about it. So I'm like, yay.
Sure it will. I'm sure
because he's booked a ton of places. I wish I had been like if we'd lived here even like 5 or 10 years before we lived here, it would have been like he was booking places that I've seen wrestling. I'm like, dude, just missed you. Weird.
Yeah, right.
But it sounds like it's gonna be a really good time. Their shows sound really great.
I still need to go back and watch the October shows. Nikki and I talk about it all the time. We're like, we still need to watch Maple Leaf Pro.
I need to catch one.
And now there's a new one. I need to see I really want to see the last one because A, that card was really stacked, and B, Athena defended her title against Giselle Shaw on that card, and I heard it was a really good match. And
he cares about it, so I'm sure the booking was there.
Yeah, they had a women's tournament last night to crown the first women's champion. Or I guess night 1 was last night and night 2 was tonight, I think.
Cool. That's right on.
I believe so. Nikki and Fernando both say the same thing, that they always make Beast Mortos lose. Yes. And Mark does not always lose, which is correct. And then Fernando says, I know Mike Bailey had to win, but Beast Mortos is losing way too much. Yes, because that's exactly what I thought when I saw that. I was like, I need this man to start picking up some W's and not just when he's in action and it's an independent wrestler, or in TNA, or in ROH wrestling like that as well. Hassan said Beast Mortos has feelings for the female form of his longtime rival Hologram. It's funny. It is. Yes. Somebody else pointed that out. They were like, why does he have a crush on Harley Graham when she's wearing his rival's mask? I was funny because I was covering it and I was like, I don't know what's happening in the match, and so I had to write we cut back to Mortos and Harley Graham, who are staring at each other, because I was like, no, I can't. I don't see the wrestling match. I don't know what's happening in the ring. Clearly, nothing important, and I am more interested in this story as well. Sean says that Mikey Ruckus and the AEW's music is a head and shoulders above WWE and whatever house band they're using right now. Yeah, Def Rebel sucks. Just flat out, he's terrible. Mikey Ruckus is awesome, and Mikey, and he's talked about it before because I follow him on social media.
On social,
and he was, and somebody asked him last night about what the process is of him. Is the artist involved? The wrestler involved in the entrance music, or do they basically just get stuck at it? And he said no, they are generally in it from the beginning. They talk about what they want. Mikey sends them something, and then they make tweaks from there, and then so generally the wrestler approves the final theme song. And so basically he's saying, if you don't like their theme music, don't blame him, blame the wrestler, because he's going off of what they said. So if you don't like it, it's not his fault.
He's starting a whole new, that's a whole new art form that what he's doing.
And it's funny because Mikey, before AEW, before the Workhorsemen were in AEW, and AEW, I don't even know if they were a thing yet, but Mikey Ruckus made the Workhorsemen's indie theme song. And so then of course he created the one they use in AEW.
Well, the reason I even know who he is because he was doing theme songs for a couple of the OTT wrestlers, because of and then a couple of the other indie wrestlers that so I caught wind of who he actually. This is one of the first times where I really know who the person behind the music is because it was just someone that I picked up on early. And it's probably because of what gets aggregated in my timeline. So I started following him on social, and I'm just it's really interesting because that's a real skill. That's a skill, man, to be able to anybody that's doing graphic design, music design, whatever, to make something that fits with a person that based on what they're telling you is a really, really unique skill. And so
for sure.
He's really actually the head and shoulders thing. You're dead on because there's so much more effort put into it. He is a real artist who likes wrestling and is this music. And it's let me put two things I love together.
Yeah. And he talks about his story and how crazy it is. And how he was the store manager at a Dollar General for years and working day jobs and making music on the side, and then just happened. And then he was making wrestlers some theme songs for wrestlers, and AEW found out, and somehow they got hooked up and they hired him. And now he gets to do, and as he talks about, he's I get to do my dream job now every day. And he's and I busted my butt for years and never thought I'd end up where I am now. So if you don't follow him on social media, Mikey's also on Blue Sky as well. I highly recommend following him because he is and he'll show you sometimes. He'll post videos of him putting the songs together and how it layers and all of these things. And he'll add in you'll see how he starts out say with the drums, and then he'll add the bass, and then he'll add the next thing, and then he'll tie it all together. And it's just a really cool thing that you get to see that most people don't even think about. Mikey's
because we always, we see the finished project, so we all know that it's awesome. We don't
Yeah.
know like how much. It's like, guys, a lot of work goes into making that look easy.
Mhm.
A lot.
Mhm.
If someone's making
For
it
sure.
look easy, they put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, and sometimes he'll have to do like he's had to do like last minute songs because of like a character thing that's going to happen on a big show, and he's had to come in like last minute and make music that he's talked about before.
That's
I can't
awesome.
remember off the top of my head who it is now, but he made their theme song like right at the last minute because of like whatever they were doing with the character and they needed something else. Brad says that apparently Tony wanted Speedball at the start of AEW. I think I remember that too, but they were still banned. And when he was able to finally come, there were issues signing him, so he went to TNA until this year. Right. So it was, but somebody, Speedball is definitely somebody they've had their eye on.
Smartly.
Geographic bombshells. We're gonna have all these variations and variants. It's like Effie. There's various Effie,
all of our alts.
variants of Effie. Brad said, my friend turned me on to Speedball years ago when I was getting back into PWG. He told me to look for this guy that looks 12 years old, but he's not. And I was instantly hooked and then he was banned. Oh man, that must have been rough.
Oh, that's harsh. Oh my God.
His ban was over, but oh my God. I would have been sad. And I guess that's kind
that
of
would have been really horrible. No one, like now I feel for Doug.
Kenny has a question for you, Mel.
Where
on the hands you live? Oh, I know that answer.
Where in the mitten do I live? It's hard to show, but it's like right around. Let's see if I can get this.
Hold your hand up higher.
Like right around. Can you guys tell? It's like right around. Well, no, Detroit's down here. I'm like
Chris Sabin lives down here. Chris Sabin and Alex.
I live close to them. They're a little more central than me. I'm about there. I mean, Bob will probably correct me, but whatever. I'm about there. Show me on your hand. Yep. The funniest thing about that too is for those people who are Ash versus Evil Dead fans, and because Bruce Campbell and Ted Raimi are both from this area, from the D. They made a joke in that show about show me on your hand, because he was like, and we died. It was like, Bob and Mel are dead right now. They just threw in a Michigan joke for us. So it was actually pretty funny. What's funny about that is I hadn't done that really in the time that I've been here, but I went to a wedding in December and somebody asked me where I lived. And I was like, let me show you on my map. So I got to use my map for the first time really when I was like traveling and felt like a really true, like I've been here 10 years now. Like, so, I mean, I vote here. I'm like, I think I'm official.
Right.
So it was really funny when I actually got to let me show you on my map that I carry with me everywhere I go, because that's what happens
convenient.
when you, and it's so funny because, so there's a upper peninsula to Michigan because we're a peninsula.
Right.
Michigan is, because we're surrounded by water. For those of you who don't understand what the concept of peninsula is.
Again, going back to geographic
gels. So there's an upper peninsula that's actually attached to Wisconsin, but it's part of Michigan. And it's they call us trolls because there's a bridge to the upper peninsula from Michigan, and we live under the bridge. So the Upers, the people from the upper peninsula, the UP or the Upers, call us trolls.
Oh, that's how.
So we even have like regional nerdery. So there you go. That's your Midwest Minute with Mel.
Sean says that he's by the thumb knuckle between the bridges.
There you go.
Yeah. It is geography.
You're in the thumb? Oh my God. Those people in the thumb are weird.
Yes, I did see that Baron Corbin wrestled at MLP at
yeah, I heard
MLP,
that.
and he's under his new name, which is Bishop Dyer, because I saw an explanation that a bishop is higher than a baron. And then Dyer is a reference to his old name before he was Baron Corbin. So there you go. Learn something new every day, whether you want to or not. I Make Beats said producing music is not easy. I've been doing it for 8 years and I'm still learning. Yes, more power to you, because I know that it is not easy and people think that it is and don't realize how much goes into it.
That's because all we hear is, like I said, we hear the finished product. We
Mhm.
are like this, and there were like an idiot could do. There was a whole song about it in the 80s.
There was.
So
Maria says, what are our thoughts on Stephanie McMahon starting her own podcast? It is gonna be all
propaganda
WWE.
for,
It's gonna be all WWE approved. It's gonna be the way WWE tells their on all their documentaries. It's their version of events.
kayfabe.
And then you have to have other people outside of WWE be like, no, that's not actually true. And I feel like this podcast is going to be a lot of that. It's going to be a lot of trying to make people forget that she's corporate officer number 3.
I think it's more even. I would go a step further, given the way that they keep playing their stupid hands by like making non-legal counter complaints to like amended lawsuits and stupid stuff, because it hurts Vince's feels, is essentially what their argument is, which is not under the purview of the GD law. But my guess on this one, I'm not kidding, because of how this is going down and how serious it is. They're kind of getting their ass handed to them in court right now because they don't have a leg to stand on. I wouldn't go. This is propaganda. She's going to be on there constantly, like taking
Right
shots. Yep, it's exactly right. She's going to be on there taking shots at Janela, I think. I'm not kidding.
I don't know. It depends. I mean, I don't know if I go that
they're
far.
dumb. They're dumb, but I don't.
They are dumb, but
I don't mean direct shots.
Yeah,
but I mean, they're going to be on there to be like.
This whole thing is, it's just like Logan Paul being in WWE. Yep. It's a PR. It's a publicity stunt to make her look better.
It's a total Sean.
Or as Brad says, Stephanie created podcasts like Stephanie started women's wrestling.
Correct. Yes. And Al Gore invented the internet, right?
Yes. I Make Beats said, I went from playing in bands to writing and producing and thought the same thing at first. Yeah. And then I bet you were in for a big surprise when you're like, wait a minute.
Just editing podcasts teaches, like when I was just starting out editing podcasts and you like go through and have to like get all the ums and ahs and pauses out of there, that's just tedious work. And I started to realize, just doing it as a like DIY, watching some YouTube videos, reading some stuff, I was like, well, no wonder sound editors get paid the big bucks, because this is nuts.
Right.
Because when you start peeling it apart, it's like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of it. And that's like just the production side. Forget actually making, like having an original thought and making a music of any sort. But I love that. See, I'm a process nerd, so I like learning about people's process. And Mikey Ruckus is really cool about talking. Like, if people genuinely, like in earnest, are asking him questions about creation, he is cool about answering. So I like that.
Yeah, that's very cool.
The accessibility sometimes isn't, which is, I get it. And not every artist or whatever is beholden to the public to tell me about how you do this. But it is nice when someone's willing. Yeah. If you're genuinely asking. I mean, a lot of people are like, tell me how to be a musician in 5 minutes.
Right.
And you're like, I'm walking away now.
Right. So I will circle back because Fernando has a question kind of similar. I was thinking I was going to bring up what happened with Swerve and Mox last night. So we'll go back to the tournament briefly. So
Orange all day.
The Orange Cassidy beat Hechicero in a great main event. I love seeing Hechicero in a main event when he's in. I love seeing him all the time. I'm always happy to see him. Then last night we had Ricochet and Shibata had a really great match. The fans hate Ricochet. They're in it. I don't know if you've seen the match. I don't even know if I should. Of course, bad faith grifters have gotten a hold of the clip where Shibata and Ricochet are sitting across from each other. Ricochet is slapping Shibata. Shibata is no-selling it because it's a strong style of what Shibata does. And then Shibata uses the claw that he was given by the Von Erichs and uses that to pick him up. And there are people on the comments, this is where the best wrestle? I thought this is where the best wrestle. This isn't wrestling. They're setting wrestling back 20 years. Again, tell me you don't know anything about Shibata without telling me you don't know anything about Shibata.
What she said.
So Ricochet does win, but he wins by cheating. He rolled up Shibata really quickly, had his legs on the bottom rope, and he beat Shibata, the referee, obviously because the referee missed it. Shibata tried to tell the referee, and the referee's like, I can't do anything for you. I didn't see it. Ricochet won. He's moving on to the tournament, which is how Ricochet should be winning that match. Unfortunately, he is taking away Shibata versus Kenny Omega from us, so I'm hoping we get that match somewhere down the line, especially because we had the little stare down last week between them when he came out with the Ops. And then we had the Battle of the Marks. We had Mark Briscoe versus Mark Davis. Mel and I are big Mark Davis fans from seeing him wrestle in the BOSJ a few years ago and realizing, like, hey, he's not only is he a great tag wrestler, he's a great singles wrestler. And then we had, and so of course, though, because Mark Davis is being forced to be in the Don Callis family, which we need to again make that clear, like. And they keep making that clear that he does not, like, he's there because he has to be.
He's there under protest.
Don Callis told him if he wants to wrestle, he has to wrestle for them. And they have to tell him to do things. Like Kyle had to make him beat Will Ospreay with the chair. Last night, Murder Machines were taking out independent wrestlers. And they told Mark to get involved and made Mark start doing it as well. And so Mark was, he got involved, and then Monster Machines came out and rewarded him for his support, I guess, and they helped him beat Mark Briscoe. So Mark Davis is now in the tournament, which I get for heel purposes that they had to have him win that way. I would have preferred for Mark Davis to win clean because I want Tony to present him better than he does, but I get it with the story that they're telling. And it's kind of weird that they had Ricochet cheat to win, and then they turn around 2 matches later and they helped Mark Davis win, which is kind of the same thing. So they did both of those were because of cheating, but I get it for storyline purposes and whatnot. And yes, Brad is correct. It was I have almost said New Japan Cup. Davis is definitely not a junior. And I saw that he was on AEW, and I'm way behind on AEW, but I think I'm just going to skip and watch this episode with Mark Davis because I saw the clip that was going around and it was hilarious. And then, Brad Shibata said Shibata faking his drop kick and then slapping Ricochet's head sent me. And you can hear it. He hit his head so loud.
Shibata, that man can do no wrong in my world. I mean, I didn't get to see his run in New Japan, and then I know that the Japanese will not let him wrestle there. But I was there when he came back because I was at that Forbidden Door. And
right.
Oh dear, I'm like, I am here for this. I get it. Like I get why people, and I'm so glad. I don't want him to get hurt, but good Lord, he's amazing and valuable. I mean, he can eat he can take this loss. It doesn't matter. It's not really a loss.
And it's the way that it happened. The loss that Ricochet
it's
had
not a legitimate loss. So it's
right. Ricochet had to cheat to beat him. That's the only way Ricochet can beat Shibata.
And they're trying to push Ricochet, and they need him to make some wins against some people that are meaningful. And Shibata is certainly a meaningful win.
Right.
Even if it's a BS finish.
So Wednesday we will have the finals, which is Speedball versus Orange Cassidy versus Ricochet versus Mark Davis, and then the winner of that faces Kenny Omega for the title at Dynasty. I feel like it's gonna be Speedball. I feel like that's where we're going. They do have a history together. They've wrestled each other before. Speedball also has a lot of history with Takeshita, which they brought up on commentary. They had a long-time feud in DDT Pro back when Speedball was banned. That's what he was doing. He was feuding with Takeshita, so I think having someone who knows Takeshita so well, who just lost that title, and having them face Kenny, Speedball losing to Kenny Omega is not going to hurt Speedball. It's Kenny Omega.
Especially it's going to be like
Speedball can take a banger.
That's going to be a banger of a match, and the International Championship is a fighting championship anyway because of the way that they've played it with the last three people. So Kenny will have to defend it. He's going to have some just dream matches now,
right? And which he should. And so I think that's the route they go here, because I think Ricochet, Ricochet is not going to lose the title match, I think, right now. And then Mark Davis clearly is there because he cheated, and he's not going to advance. And Orange Cassidy has already held the title. He lost to Takeshita in the little tournament thing that they did last month. So I think Speedball is the most logical person to do that. Kenny says, I showed little Kenny what Ricochet has been doing, and it blew his mind. He loved superhero / Power Ranger Ricochet a couple years ago. Why is he such a jerk now?
He's doing some jerky things, shoot and otherwise. But yeah, I mean, this is the story that they're telling, and they're pushing him, and he's good. So,
well, Brad makes a good point that Ricochet will win by nefarious means. The 4-way was done, so Speedball doesn't take the pinfall. That's also, that's good. I hadn't thought about it that way.
That's why Brad's here.
And that keeps Ricochet in a title picture and puts him in the pay-per-view. So yeah, I could see that being okay. I could see that being the case. Brad makes a very good point there. And so then we see Swerve. Speaking of, we saw Swerve, who is now the number 1 contender for the world title because he beat Ricochet. He came out. Nana was not there. Nana was trying to repair his beloved jacket because Ricochet put his logo on the back of it, and he said he was tending to that. He said, I have more important things to focus on, which is becoming world champion. And he talks about how he's looked up to Cope for a really long time since he was a kid. He was a fan of Cope. Cope took him under his wing when he became a wrestler, and he was like, and basically was like, I learned everything. He said, I learned all kinds of things from you, and whether you are the champion or the challenger, you're in my way. And I'll just have to get over it and deal with you. Then he goes on, he's talking about Mox, and he's talking about how Mox used a lot of dribble, and he's like, I don't think you believe anything that you say. You just come out here and speak in riddles, and that, says all this stuff. And Mox took that personally and dressed in all black, has a black hat on, looking like a robber. And he somehow found a crowbar and took Swerve out at the knees from behind. And then he runs out of the building, and he's standing outside next to an ambulance. Cuts an okay promo. Just talking about how basically Swerve is not the one. He hates Swerve. He hates Jay White. He hates Cope. He doesn't respect them. And he's going to remain champion is basically what it boiled down to. And somebody asked, let me see if I can find. Yes, Fernando said, who should beat Moxley, Swerve, or Will Ospreay? I don't think they're doing Will Ospreay as a champion anytime soon. I think they're trying to hold it off as soon as possible. Though Will Ospreay did say on Dynamite, I'm ready to be the guy now. Mm-hmm. I'm ready for a title match. I want to wrestle at All In again. If Omega Okada 5 is happening at All In, that is your main event. I will not budge on that theory. That's your main event. Athena versus Mercedes may make it a double main. If Tony is feeling a little crazy, he might make it a double main event. I think that I could see Will is going to have a big match at All In. I do see that. But I don't see him, depending on what they're doing, unless they're going to pivot from this whole Moxley story, because it's just not working the way they thought it was going to. Because we talked about that earlier in the show. Can you wait for Eddie Kingston to come back in August? Can you wait for Darby Allin to come back from climbing Mount Everest this summer? Can you wait that long for Jon Moxley? Or is he going to realize these fans already didn't like this story? Then we had the main event we had. They love Swerve. Do they just flip everything, just be like, you know what, let's end this now and put the title on Swerve? And I don't know. I originally, when Swerve won that, I was like, he's not winning at Dynasty. And I feel like he probably still won't, because Tony does not pivot if he doesn't have to. He has a plan. Assuming he still does like he's done in the first few years, he lays out all of his champions at least a year in advance. And I don't think that Ricochet was, I don't think that Swerve is who they planned. I feel like they were planning to keep this title on Moxley to let this Death Rider story play out. He did it with the devil. That devil storyline was terrible, and he stuck it out all the way through that World's End, and we got that terrible World's End. That pay-per-view was not that great. The match was sucked. But maybe he learned his lesson. The fans really hated the devil, so maybe we should, but then again, do you give some... Mox has been somebody who he has relied on multiple times and has carried the company for him. And even with the things that I don't like about the Death Riders, like that does not take away what Jon Moxley has done for this company. And
not even close. Yeah.
I am still a huge Jon Moxley fan, even if I don't like this story. So does Tony give him the benefit of the doubt and let this continue to play out whatever Jon Moxley's vision is? Because at the end of the day, Tony Khan is the one who makes the final decisions on everything we see on TV. So does he keep that faith in Jon Moxley, or does he be like, you know what, I appreciate everything you've done for us, but this is just not working, and for the benefit of the company, we got to go back to Swerve here? I really don't know.
I mean, Swerve is still hot.
Yeah.
Nobody would cry. I don't think. I mean, some people would, but I wouldn't cry.
Brad says, the thing about the All-In promo from last night was that Moxley wasn't in it. He wasn't one of the few people who did the voiceover. That hints that he's not going to be in the title match. Oh, you know what? I didn't even catch that. I did hear, I mean, I know what you're talking about. There was an All-In promo, and there were wrestlers talking, and I didn't catch that Jon Moxley was not involved. But All In still in July, so we have Dynasty, Double or Nothing, and then I don't think there's a show till All In, correct? I believe that there's a gap between All In and Double or Nothing and All In. I don't think there's a June show, unless
Double or Nothing is in Memorial Day, and then we had a month off, and then the next thing's in July, I think. June is Forbidden Door was in June last year, but
they moved Forbidden Door to August this year. Forbidden Door is in August, so
in Wembley.
But see, last year there was that 7-week gap that we had, so I don't remember them.
That would be nice, just because I could get caught up, and it's right in the middle of the G1.
Right. We have to watch the G1. Please don't put a pay-per-view in there.
Don't put a pay-per-view during the June.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't think there's a June pay-per-view, unless there's a pay-per-view that's not been announced. But unless I'm just completely forgetting, I don't think there's a pay-per-view in June.
Yes, it is.
Yes, these months are going by way too fast. And see, that's another thing. Do you put the title on Swerve when Jay White is right there?
And thank you,
Jay White probably is turning on him, because I don't trust. We talked about this last week. I don't trust babyface Jay White, because Jay White's not a babyface. No matter how
there's no such thing.
Jay White's not a babyface. He's pretending. Like Tony pretended to be a rookie, Jay White's pretending to be a babyface. So
if you believe Jay White is a face, I've got a bridge to sell you.
Right.
And also, that would be a monumental waste of Jay White, because of how amazeballs he is. He is the greatest heel of all time. They are again, I'm excited that they're finally putting him into this mix here. Mm-hmm. Get him on the TVs. I get it, but
right.
It's, trust me.
So they do kind of have a crowded scene, because you've got, they're moving Cope out of this story. Thankfully, we're going to hopefully
be putting it in a way
they fight, and he's moved. So we've got Jay White, we have Swerve, eventually Ospreay, and eventually Kenny Omega. Which you should be, like you said, you should be building up. You should have a lot of people going for your titles, but that kind of makes it a little muddy. And now you've taken the contract away from Christian, so we don't have that looming over this whole thing of whoever becomes champion, Christian's going to cash in, because people thought because the rumor was Christian was not going to cash in as long as Jon Moxley was champion. Then so people assumed, okay, Adam Copeland is going to beat Jon Moxley, and then Christian's going to cash in on him, which is initially what I thought was going to happen, like early on. And then I was like, no, I don't think that's where they're going with it. So they got that away from Christian, and also Nick Wayne called him out to his face. He said, quit making excuses. What are you doing? If you had stuck to the plan, this wouldn't have happened. Well, what is the plan? there were rumors that Luchasaurus was at the show on Sunday. There have been rumors that, yes, he was going to be involved, but then there were rumors that no, he was just there backstage. He's not ready to come back yet, even though he's doing well. So there's, so was that when he says, if you had stuck to the plan, so was that the plan or was there something else? And then he got in Nick Wayne's face and then told when Shayna tried to get involved, he told her she was going back to work in the midnight shift at the Waffle House if she didn't step down. So she stepped back. And so now we have that storyline brewing, and Christian seems to temporarily be out of the title picture. Or at least
putting it back on Swerve would actually make sense to get some of the other guys that are in the thing involved, because it would get all of the older guys out of the picture.
Yes.
You could have him wrestling Will Ospreay and Jay White, and Hangman's pretty hot right now. Even they
you have
that,
Hangman.
That's down the line to me.
Right.
That feels like they should save that for later. But
right.
If you get it off of John Moxley and put it on Swerve, that opens up the title picture to the people that.
And it would also fit Mox's story. The whole thing for Mox has been, I don't want to set the company back 20 years. Putting a title on it feels like putting a title on Cope would have been.
He could make the whole argument if Swerve beat him, he could be like, see, I made you into a bunch of little me's and you beat me.
Right. So that's what I was gonna say. So it could fit in the story if that's what they did, if they had Swerve win at Dynasty. You can have,
see, I made you live up to what you were supposed to be.
Right.
And my plan worked. I'm a genius.
And then you could do that story with Jay White as well. Right. Or one of the younger guys, which appears to be what they're doing here, unless they're waiting on Kingston. But that also depends on how quickly Kingston can come back, because he was the initial timetable was August. He has said he is having some other health issues on top of that delayed his, some of the recovery he was doing, and he's been working with Cesar Bononi for the last few weeks, and he is trying to get back faster than he's supposed to. So who knows how that will actually play out. The Devil storyline was, and the MJF and Adam Cole bromance was trash. Yeah, I did not like that. I really don't remember last night off the top of my head who did the voiceovers, because I noticed it. I recognized, I was like, hey, that's it was, I think Ospreay did do one. I want to say there was somebody else, but it was not John Moxley. I know that now that he pointed that out, I know for sure. Mike Beat said, I kind of like how AEW has the pay-per-view break at the start of the year. Yes. The world title picture needs some new faces, although Swerve winning again, I would very much approve of. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with that. And no, Christian does not have any chill. And yes, Christian's always very disrespectful to poor Renee.
He really is.
He's very rude to her all the time.
He's kind of rude.
Unfortunately, a lot of the men, the heel men, are very disrespectful to Renee.
They kind of don't treat Renee.
Jericho was rude to her last week. He was real rude to her. And then
I thought she was gonna smack him though, and I was like, "You go, girl." This is one of those times when everyone would cheer if you bitch.
That is right. I do remember Ospreay and Hangman were two of the main ones doing one. Yes, I do remember Hangman reading.
Thank you, Bad.
Yes, thank you. I knew somebody would have that. Lauren says, are they ever going to do something with the trios titles? It just feels like they're there despite them getting plenty of teams. They are. I think they are. I think they're building the Undisputed Kingdom, and Shane Taylor Promotion seems to be involved in that as well.
Yeah, they actually seem to be doing something with them.
I feel like that's where this is going.
They've been bringing the infantry in to do stuff too with that. Yeah. So they've been trios more. They've been tagging with a third person. So
yeah. So I feel like, yes, they are going to do something with the trios. I think that's why they've been doing this stuff with the Undisputed Kingdom. I think Adam Cole is going to wrestle, because he's wrestling next Saturday. If you missed it, Collision is 2 episodes next week. Saturday night at 11 p.m. and then Sunday night at 11 p.m. thanks to basketball. Collision's going to be 1 hour each night, which is fun for me because I do live coverage and have to work my day job on Monday.
So we'll only have half of a Collision to talk about for you guys next week.
Yes, we will. 1 hour. Because the NBA is doing NBA things. They got the really good rating the last time. So from 11, instead of doing the whole 2 hours, then they're going to do 11, It will probably whenever the NBA is done. So maybe 11/17.
Guess who's watching
So
the
I will
first
be
hour
on.
of Collision on Sunday morning on their Max?
I will be live because I will be doing live coverage.
I know. I'm sorry, honey.
I will also be doing live coverage next Sunday for that hour.
Good thing you're better at staying up late than I am.
Yes, and so Sunday, or I'm sorry, I believe it's the Saturday episode. They are doing Adam Cole versus Daniel Garcia for the TNT title because they were having a phenomenal match on Collision, and then it got interrupted by Shane Taylor Promotions. So they're redoing the match this week. Everybody is banned from ringside. We will have a match finish.
Yeah.
I assume Daniel Garcia retains, and then maybe that's how they pivot the trios picture back to the Undisputed Kingdom. And I'm hoping that means Undisputed is going to wrestle the rest of the Death Riders, and hopefully we have a damn title change. And I hope it happens as soon as Dynasty. That's what I hope. But who knows? Because the trios, we talk about how the women's titles and how they're booked, but good Lord, they can't book a trios. They can't book a trios or a 6-man for that matter, because over in the 6-man, over in ROH, instead of having Dustin and the Von Erichs vacate the titles because both Von Erichs have been injured, he's just had them the whole time and hasn't defended them since September. But I guess because it's ROH, nobody cares except for the 12 of us who watch every single week. They're just want to keep. I'm like, you could have him drop those titles. He could win it back at All In Texas. It's fine. Like, you could have done. You don't have to make them hold it all the way till Texas. Lose it and let them get it back. But they did that with last year. Wheeler Yuta had the Pure Championship and was out with a concussion for 4 months, and we know concussions are not always predictable. And so instead of having him vacate, they just let him hold it the whole time, and it was sitting, as he said, it's been sitting on the bottom of my entertainment system where my TV is. That's where that title was for 4 months. Could have just vacated it, had a little interim champion, but no. Again, this is where Tony Khan does not pivot. And how? So is he going to pivot with this Death Rider story? I really don't know, because it takes a lot for him to pivot, but also because that match was so poorly received, maybe it does push him enough, but maybe because it's Jon Moxley, he lets Jon Moxley just hold it as long as he's ready, and then they fix it. I don't know. I Make Beat said, Christian was my current favorite catchphrase. Has our current catchphrase, shut up, don't interrupt me while I conduct my business. I love it. It's perfect for him. It's just the perfect type of disrespect for this version of Christian. I love Christian Cage. And I personally, as I have said multiple times, if I had to choose between him and Cope being champion, I would choose Christian.
Oh, yeah. The patriarchy thing grew on me a long time ago. So
he's so much fun. And I'm glad they have Kip in there because they're giving Kip something to do, because Kip is very good. Kip does not get he was injured and then he was out because his father passed away. And Kip does not get a lot of, I think he's very underrated, and I wish they would use him more. Especially because they're using Penelope more, which I'm glad about, because Penelope is a very solid wrestler, and I'm glad they've been using her more. Fernando says, how far away is from Eddie Keith is coming back? Yeah, so August. The timetable was August. He says he's trying to get back faster. He is working with Cesar Bononi, who was wrestling for AEW, but is also a personal trainer. So he's been working with him. Because Eddie has shared in his stories from workouts and stuff with Cesar. So I don't know if the timetable is still August, or if I heard he's working to get back faster. Then he commented and said after Revolution, he doesn't even know if he should come after watching that main event. I don't know if I should come back to AEW. Clearly working. Some sites took that as legitimate. That I was like, do you not know anything about Eddie Kingston?
Do you not know anything about
Also, do you not know anything about wrestling in 2025? The man's clearly working,
dude.
Which makes me wonder if he's coming back sooner than expected, because now he's commenting.
Maybe he's not killing the rumors about the later return to keep people guessing.
Right.
Which is what I would do if I were coming home sooner.
Yeah. Right.
Home,
so we shall see. Lady B says, I don't see a lot of talk about what Danielson is doing at All In. I've always assumed that they will be his return, especially since he was part of the ticket sale event. Mox without the title rematch. I had not thought about that. I kind of forgotten. I am one of those people who've not been talking about it like recently, but yeah, because I kind of thought, because Danielson has basically said he'll be a part-time wrestler, and then of course this was the angle that got him off TV. Please don't wait till All In to end this damn story. But Danielson could, so perhaps Mox does drop the title, and Danielson comes back for his revenge, and they do it at All In. I mean, they certainly could, and I wouldn't be mad at it at all. I make beats that he forgot the trios title exists. They don't have them in a briefcase. They just don't ever have them.
It's easy to forget. Sometimes I forget too. I'm not gonna lie, because they're up and down.
Yes. Brad says, "Oh, don't forget to watch Willow versus Mayu Watanabe from very early this morning's TJPW show. I have to go back tonight and watch it, but it was supposed to be great, as was the rest of the show." Yes. And I was saying earlier, I saw her selfies with Aja Kong, and she got to meet Miko Satomura this morning. Lauren says, "What are they doing in ROH? It's so bad lately. Fightful doesn't even cover the review show." ROH has actually been better recently, and Brad says ROH has been very good. The CMLL integration has been awesome. Yes, I would agree with that. As far as like most storyline wise, they aren't telling. I mean, there's not a whole lot of storytelling going on there. There's a little bit. And I was actually supposed to be on a ramble last week, but Collins was having issues with their laptop again. And so we didn't do it. And I was like, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, but the wrestling has been pretty solid. The CMLL stuff has been fun. CMLL wrestlers, they've done straight CMLL main events 2 weeks in a row with just straight up CMLL wrestlers. They did hint at Diamante and Athena, which I think that's getting ready to happen. Red Velvet has been defending her title. This week they had Layla Gray had a really cool vignette that aired, and the woman who did Julia Hart's vignette did Layla's this week, and it was really cool. And she talked about, in the video, she talked about how she went to the La Dojo and has been she got in some training there. And yes, we do have Dark Panther versus Commander for the TV title. Yeah, Commander has been working. That man he's defended that title quite a few times.
That's fine with me, because he has one of the best Canadian destroyers anywhere, and I know that's your favorite, but I love watching him do it.
I do too. I love Commander.
He destroys Canadian destroyers.
He does.
And he does them out of the blue sometimes, which I love. Yes. Where it's like he just throws one in randomly that he's like, dang.
Yes. I appreciate that about him very much. Brad says losing Dark and Rampage has been good since Tony was forced to concentrate on just 2 main shows, but it's also cut time for a lot of the talent. Yeah, that's definitely. Yeah, I agree with that, because they don't have it, and so ROH has kind of filled that gap, but then kind of not, because it's kind of got away from that, and it's frustrating, because there's both things. It's both things where he's just kind of throwing matches together. He's bringing in a bunch of indie talent and just doing whatever. Luckily, he's been doing shorter shows. The shows have been like an hour and 15 minutes. He's gotten away from these damn 3-hour shows that meant nothing. So he's kind of gotten away from that. I think, unfortunately, because contracts are running out, we're seeing, talent is not getting renewed. We talked about that last week. Abaddon was one of those talents. Nick Camarado was one of those talents. And so I think we will see some of that. And, Mel and I talked about last week that we wouldn't be surprised if Danhausen ends up being one of those talents. Yeah, I agree with you there. Lawrence's losing Rampage was terrible for the women. I would agree, because granted they had one, sometimes 2 matches. They were building stories there for them. That's kind of where they put some of the backstage stuff. So I would agree.
There were a shocking number of my male friends who may or may not even be interested in women's wrestling, who said to me they should turn that into a women's show, an hour-long women's show.
That's what
that was like, it seemed like almost a universal thing that people thought that they should do an hour of women's wrestling on there as part of their programming. I would not have
been mad at that at
all. I mean, that was something that surprised me. Like, the Irish mentioned it to me. I mean, that was like his idea, where it was like, that should be an hour for the women. And I was like,
I mean, it would have been a good story. But they were also building up stories for things for people like Top Flight. where Butcher was wrestling. You know, you had stuff like that going on.
Yeah.
That's where Stat was getting in some stuff too. And so, and obviously that's where Jade Cargill was getting in.
I mean,
before
I guess
Collision.
once you have a $585 million deal with a major network, you don't need to do engagement as much. So you don't need to worry about that.
Fernando, I see your question and I'm going to get to it real quick, but let me go since we're on ROH. Ron said, if you're a female talent in ROH, why would you want to re-sign with a company? Not only are you getting behind a paywall, you're not booked for AEW unless you're jobbing on Collision. I mean, I'm guessing it's a steady paycheck. That's probably it's a steady paycheck in wrestling. So I would that would be for me. I mean, that's the only argument I got for you, LaRon. But you make valid points.
You are not wrong.
You are not wrong. You make valid points. That's the only
point is valid.
If you're wanting a steady paycheck in the wrestling business,
as we like to say around these parts, times are tough all over.
Yeah, that is true. But if money is not the reason, if they're outside of that, I really don't know. Ron says, is anyone familiar with Kanji for Rev Pro? It looks like she is Mercedes' next challenger for the Rev Pro women's title.
I'm sure that our pals from over there.
I will say I will let the people in the replies know because I
don't know, but I'm sure it's.
But if they're putting Kanji up against Mercedes, I would say that person probably that Kanji is probably somebody they think is worthy of wrestling Mercedes. I would assume that they are probably of a really good. I would assume they are very good if Mercedes is coming to town and you want her to challenge for the Rev Pro title, that you would feel comfortable doing that. That's my guess. Brad, there we go. Brad said Kanji is very good. That should be a great match. Thank you. I knew somebody would know.
I know someone that we know knows. They're either over there or they watch Rev Pro and they know someone that does.
Yeah, Fernando says, where do you think the MJF and Hurt Syndicate story is going? I really don't know. I'm not sure. I like that they did the tie-in to show MVP's relationship with MJF prior to AEW. I think that's really cool. And the fact that they're doing this in the midst of the storyline with Hangman. I don't think we're going to get like an automatic rematch. I feel like you got to let it breathe a little bit. I don't know what Hangman's going to do, but I am very intrigued by the Hurt Syndicate. I don't think he joins the Hurt Syndicate necessarily, but Brad says that he thinks MJF declines and brings in his dynasty in MLW. That's Richard Holiday, right? And I just saw Richard Holiday. He tweeted the picture the day of Revolution. It was him, MJF, and I'm blanking. I'm sure Brad will tell me momentarily. Who the other person is. Was
that the varsity or whatever that they used to do on MLW? Is that what he was part of? What were they called?
Alex Hammerstone, who is now a free agent.
Yeah.
Okay, I thank you. I knew I was like, there's somebody I'm missing. Why am I blanking?
Thank you, Brad.
That would be interesting. Maybe that is how they bring Hammerstone in, because I would not be surprised if they bring in Hammerstone. And Richard Holiday has done. He's been some of the local talent they faced, I think. Didn't they bring in Richard Holiday last year? I think. I want to say they did something.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask on that one. You guys are
I believe that he did.
Me.
I mean, it may have been ROH too, but I feel like they brought him in for in action matches. I think. So I could see that being. And then you've got Alicia there too. I don't know if that factors into anything. But I'm interested. I'm intrigued by whatever they do here. MJF's got to do something besides the Hangman stuff. Brad says Richard Holiday was the talent that Roosh went off on and got suspended for hurting. Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Roosh going into business for himself, you don't say.
Weird. I've never heard of that before.
You don't say.
I've never heard that about Roosh.
No, brand new information.
It's never been rumored at all in multiple channels.
That would be interesting if they bring Richard Holiday in and Roosh, but then again, they had Stephanie Vacker and Roosh there too. So, and then they brought in Gabe Kidd while Mariah May was there. So there's that too. Granted, theirs was a bit of a different situation, but That's interesting. But yeah, maybe that is the route they go because it would give MJF something to do besides Hangman. But you know that. I mean, the Hangman story is good. Like the match was really good but it gives him something to. Because when he cares, that we've talked about this, when he cares about a story, he's good. But when he doesn't give a shit, that's when he becomes like
Tedious.
Yeah, he becomes intolerable.
And then he starts picking up the fruit off the ground, the rotten fruit off the ground.
Yes, he does.
And throwing it into the audience.
Yes, he does.
And we don't need that.
Not at all. So unless there is anything else, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that needs to be covered. I think we got most of it.
Nope. If you are so inclined to drop a couple bucks our way, tomorrow is our deadline, the 17th of March. So if you want to throw one in there at the end, or if you want to throw a tip in there before the deadline, March 17th, we are in to the networking event. We will be going at least at the first level. If we pull enough random amount of cash to get to the 250 level, great, but we are going to be involved in that, and we really do thank Lo, and we're going to get there, but we'd have until tomorrow. So if you do feel so inclined to super chat or tip
we're
us,
a little bit over 100, and so then our stretch goal is 250. So it is a big ask. However, you have gotten us to the 100, and we are thrilled about that. So even if we do not make the stretch goal,
we will be involved in the event.
Laurent says, how do you leave a tip? I don't see the link. There should be a super chat button. I think it's a little dollar symbol that says say
next to the smiley face. There's usually a little dollar during the regular time.
And I think it says say thank you. I know that maybe that's because of watching on the not our show, but just seeing stuff on a replay. I think that's where it's at in the live stream. I think it's still in the same place. I could be wrong. But again, if we don't make the stretch goal, we will not be disappointed. We are so grateful.
And we are so grateful for all of you guys that have helped us out over the weeks to do that, because it's tough times and we really appreciate it. And it's going to be really fun, I think, for everyone. I'm really excited to see how it goes, because I think she's doing something different too. This is all we're all part of.
And I know that she's going to be tabled somewhere at the convention during Mania weekend. She's bringing merch to sell to people. So if you happen to be in Vegas during Mania weekend for either the Mania show or the stuff around it, go see Lo at Wrestling Wind Down and go meet her. And if you're able to support her by buying some merch, please do, because
she's great.
She's great, and we like supporting women in wrestling, and she makes really cute stuff, especially if you are, even though it is geared towards women, it is for everybody. Brad has a Bad Bitches shirt.
That's so good. I love it. I love Brad.
Bad Bitches come in all genders.
All shapes. It's just like the broads. Hey, we'll have one day, and you'll be an honorary broad and a bad bitch.
Yes,
thanks,
exactly.
Kenny.
Thank you, Kenny. We appreciate that.
Thank you. You guys are the best. Really? Oh, I did the heart hands wrong. Bill Burr is going to be so mad. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks.
That's really cool.
We appreciate that. And whatever, if we can't,
spoiled.
Even if whatever doesn't go toward, if we have to do the cutoff for the, the $100, then everything that we get that comes in between from, that comes after, if we have to stick with our $100 goal, that money will be used probably some way to go back into the show, whether it's another sponsorship opportunity or something. We'll hopefully this is the first of many sponsorship opportunities or something cool like that. So we will definitely use it for, to put back into the show in some shape or form, but we truly appreciate it. And again, even if you don't, that is a good question. Laurent says, do you have an update total?
Oh, hang on.
I do not. I think Mel does. Yes, Nikki says she loves her merch from Lo as well. I do too. Those merch is great. And again, even if you do not donate, we love you just the same. You don't have to buy our affection. It helps, but I'm just kidding. You don't have to. We still glad that you're in here watching. And
105, I think
105
is a quick estimate. It might be 110 because of that, but.
Well, we had a couple that came through last week, and we were already over the 100.
So yes,
so we have to get a more exact total, because I think it's actually a bit more than 105.
Okay,
I think not super over, but I think it is.
No, you might be right. I've been trying.
Because We got to our goal. Nikki donated 5, and that got us to like 105. And
Oh
then we had
wait, you're right. Because we had the ones we hadn't turned in yet.
We had a few. Well, no, and we had a few last. Yes, and then we had a few last week as well. We'll get the correct.
I had the last week ones on there. It was the ones from the previous time that we had been given them that we decided to put them into the hole. Yes. Anyway, yeah.
Regardless, we have enough.
You guys rock. We are going one way or another.
We got our main goal, which is our first goal. So regardless, we will be sponsoring, but we'll get you an exact total.
We'll tweeter it or
we'll make sure we get you an exact total, because
it'll be on the socials at the Powerbombshells.
Yes, but thank you so much for your support, and we will be back next week. And you can follow us on social media on Powerbombshells or at Powerbombshells on Twitter, Instagram. Blue Sky has got the extra stuff at the end.
And I also have us on Threads. And if you're in the Discord, thank you for hanging out with us during the week. Yes. We really do enjoy talking to you guys and getting your input on everything that goes on.
Yes. And I feel like there's something else I was going to plug. Oh, the wrap. I will be sure to check out the wrap.
Sam will be on the wrap.
Yes.
Wednesday morning.
You want to hear some WWE takes for me Wednesday morning? Tune into the wrap.
It's always fun to hang out with Keela. Keela's amazing. So I look forward to listening to those, because I do like popping in once in a while, because those guys have a ton of fun and I just like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and everyone have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Sing your favorite Irish ditties.
And a safe and happy 316 day.
Correct. Yeah. We just finished our Austin 316 said we just finished today's podcast.
You did.
Okay.
I heard it.
Once I hit the end button. Have a good week.